among the humblest of civic virtues, and it is easy to underestimate their significance. A very good morning to each one of you present here. I, Jalaj Devakar Singh, extend a warm welcome to you all in this session centered around water and sanitation. First of all, I would like to introduce to our co-chairs, Ms. Gauri Kumar. Gauri Kumar is the chairperson of Wheels Water Council, retired member of the 1979 batch of Indian Administrative Services, former secretary to Government of India and former chairperson, Public Sector Enterprises Board, Government of India. Dr. Ranjan Ghosh. Dr. Ranjan Ghosh is an associate professor at the Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Prior to this, he has worked at the Department of Economics, Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in Uppsala, Sweden. Shri Yogesh Andlay. Yogesh Andlay is a founding team member of several leading well-known companies in the IT, consultancy and education fields. He is the co-founder of Nucleus Software, Growth Talent Co. Limited and School of Inspired Leadership. I'd now like to request Professor Anindita Chakraborty to present a bouquet, shawl and memento to Ms. Gauri Kumar as a token of deep respect and regards.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
Svati.
Thank you, thank you. Oh,
Side is it? Svati.
आप ऐसे उठा दीजिए कि क्रॉस कर बस. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'd now like to request Professor Anindita Chakraborty to present a bouquet, shawl and memento to Dr. Ranjan Ghosh. I'd now like to request Professor Shashi Srivastava ma'am to present a shawl bouquet and memento to Shri Yogesh Andlay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
I'd now like to request Professor Shashi Srivastava ma'am to felicitate Ms. Roopa Mishra, Joint Secretary, Housing and Urban Affairs.
I was waiting for you, Vibha. You were abducted, I know. Roopa is not here.
Asit.
I'd like to request Professor Shashi Srivastava ma'am to felicitate Dr. Maneesha Ramesh, Provost, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. Now I'd like them to felicitate Sri Joe Fernandes, President and co-founder, IIT-IIT Community.
Thank you very much. That's fine. Thank you very much.
What a beautiful lake.
Yes, this is really lovely.
What a beautiful lake.
I'd now like to request Professor Shashi Srivastava ma'am to felicitate Sri Surendra Makhijia, SVP, Jain Irrigation Systems.
Abhishek, Roopa in 15 minutes.
Thank you, ma'am. To shed more light upon this respective session track and to carry the session forward, I'd like to hand over the session to our respected coaches.
A very good morning to the few champions who are present here. And I believe we are more than a handful and we are enough. So very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure and privilege for me to address the galaxy of stellar champions cutting across academia. I find Shashi and Amrita here. Social enterprises, scientific organizations, corporates, and action-oriented thought leaders. Very few of them actually. So very welcome to this session, and I hope at the end of it we are able to come together as a force to reckon for change in this country. Each is imbued with passion and commitment and an aspirational vision to make a difference at the grassroots, at scale and speed. The audience in this room carry between them enormous learnings, sensibility, and connect with ground reality, and I find so many of those champions here. We all agree that water is one of the most critical elements, intimately impacting lives, economy, livelihood, health, and with grave consequences if not addressed now. It is also intricately linked to the achievement of several sustainable development goals, with SDG Goal 6 being to ensure access to water and sanitation to all. Currently, as we are all aware, a major crisis is getting escalated in India, where close to 10 crore people are on the front lines of a nationwide water crisis, and many major cities are facing acute water shortage. This situation is projected to worsen as per United Nations and Niti Aayog reports, with demand growing up and supply getting squeezed. We just heard this morning in the plenary from the Minister and the Secretary of Union Jal Shakti Ministry about their ambitious schemes, Jal Jeevan Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, and the new initiatives in response to emerging challenges like Amrit Sarovar, and also the thrust on scientific data-based optimal solutions like Atal Bhujal Yojana. Water being a state subject, the action actually is at the state government level with local implementation by the Gram Panchayats. And this adds a certain challenge to the whole situation, as I have seen, because it's neither the central government which is able to drive directly, and the convergence happens at the state level. The Gram Panchayat development plan, as we traversed through Himachal, we learned, I'm not a rural development person, but we learned that that's the plan which is called the GPTP, which is supposed to form the core of decentralized planning for convergence of schemes. Realizing the last mile conundrum, the government is also reaching out to the development partners for institutionalizing best practices through structured collaboration, such as we talked about the Rural WASH Partners Forum. WASH, of course, stands for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, and we have been invited to be a partner in that. And so let me share with you the story of Wheels Global Foundation's Water Security Pilot Project in Himachal Pradesh. There may be some interesting learnings, anecdotes, things that you would connect with. So our intent was to create a model of sustainable collaborative governance, bringing together the best practices of diverse entities. It is not a project, it is not a state, it is not a sector that we were looking for. When we invest our time and energy and passion, we want to do something which is transformational. So the idea was to create a model where different entities could connect together in a sustainable manner. So we started at the top with the JJ Jal Jeevan Mission Director, who's credited with its rapid progress, a champion director, and you'll soon be listening to her immediately after this. She very precisely articulated the current gaps in execution of the scheme. And our focus here entirely is on execution. It's not about processes, it's about how do we execute effectively. So the brief that she gave me was later validated by the state government and the community during our travel through the state. I think the gaps that she identified remain universal across sectors. Namely, number one, need for scientific evidence-based optimal infrastructure. We have suboptimal, capital-intensive infrastructure being made in this country with a lot of public funds going in that. We need to ensure that they are scientifically done, they are optimal, most cost-effective. That's number one. Number two, motivation and capacity building of the technical cadres of the state government. The cadres, she said, were demoralized, they didn't have enough capacity, enough knowledge to be able to deliver on the challenge that the government wants them to deliver on. The third thing, community engagement and ownership. Because without community engagement and ownership, whatever you may do will neither be need-based, nor will it be sustainable, nor will there be ownership. How long can the government keep on giving O&M? How long can the government keep pumping water from the rivulets all the way to the top of the hills? And the fourth thing, sustainability. She said, whatever you do, you have to ensure that it is sustainable. Easier said than done. We were also advised to contribute at the state level. So she said, go to the state level, madam, and mentor them. So we formalized an agreement of association. We are very, having been in government, we try to structure everything, have systems and processes in place, so that nobody later says, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to do this. So what we did was, we made an agreement of association with all the execution partners, who we made into a consortium. And we said that this consortium will deliver what we set out to do to rejuvenate the springs. Each partner's responsibility, timelines, were pre-decided in consultation with them. And then we went to and incidentally the objectives were very holistic. So we identified 4 outcomes. Natural 4 number is getting repeated, but I hope it's lucky for us. So natural resource productivity, obviously. Number 2, economic outcomes. Because where does the surplus water go? You have to use it optimally, you have to use it efficiently. Social, and social includes equity, social includes health. And finally, sustainability. So the approach that we adopted was holistic village saturation. The village doesn't want just water. That's an entry point for you. You have to give them holistic solutions, they have to cover everything. And to its independent measurement through IIT Roorkee and socio-economic surveys. So we decided from the very beginning that we want to be very accountable for the outcomes that we undertake to deliver on the ground. That was in April 2021, just 18 months back. So let me take you now through the journey of these 18 months. You would think that that's a great feat. Oh, you got the state government to sign a formal memorandum of understanding, committing to do what you recommend them to do. You were right. But for us, that was the beginning of the challenge to live up to the trust and expectations of this fledgling governance model, and I'll tell you how fledgling it was. And the journey of our learning and unlearning. We realized that the action, the motivation, the momentum has to be in the villages, the panchayats, the community, the block and district officers across multiple state departments. On the supply side, it is forest. Himachal has 68.6% forest cover, so you can't do anything without doing something to the forest. Jal Shakti, obviously, because they are the ones responsible for Har Ghar Jal, Har Ghar Nal. Rural development, very interestingly, the most critical department for anybody who wants to do anything at the village level. It also provides local employment. On the supply side, we had agriculture, horticulture, and animal husbandry. So 6 departments in the state government alone. So even in the midst of COVID, this was in June of 2021, we realized the project was going nowhere. We signed the MOU, nothing was happening. So I and my colleague Yogesh, I said, Yogesh, let's go there. He said, COVID. I said, we'll just go. Let's just go. Everybody's going. We'll just go. So we went there. So we started our yatra of listening and learning listening and learning with a sense of humility, a sense that we don't know what your problems are. We have come here to figure out your problems. You know, if we knew the problems and the solutions, the country will not be where it is. You know, we believe we have the perfect solutions. But nobody has perfect solutions, let's be very clear about it. So we went on this learning yatra. We climbed up and trekked down to the springs, talked to almost 1,000 youth, women, elders, community leaders, panchayat representatives, discovering local champions and learning the grassroots reality of Bowdies or Bowdi or Nula. And they being treated as sacred so that hygiene is maintained. The tube light reaction was much later, that they revere it as a deity. And this was something told to me, something at a spring that we were visiting by a very elderly gentleman. He said, ये तो हमारी देवी है, हमको उनको देवी के जैसे रवो करते हैं. So that you maintain hygiene around that spring. You don't dirty that spring. We met scores of women lining up the spring with pitchers on their heads. Since the tap water had turbidity and sedimentation, as we later learned, we didn't know why they were there at that time. They had water in the taps. We chatted with the local youth who had lost their jobs in industry in Batti and who aspired to grow and process horticulture crops, keep livestock. You know, so they shared their aspiration. So I said, क्या करोगे तुम अब? तो अभी तो हम ऊपर चढ़ के पहाड़ के ऊपर चढ़ना पड़ता है पानी के लिए to grow horticulture crops. And you would say Himachal is so famous for horticulture, right? There's so many exclusive, unique horticulture crops. But they couldn't grow because they didn't have water. We visited numerous successful and failed experiments by the panchayats for rejuvenating spring. Don't think we are the only ones trying to do it. They were trying to do it already. For storage and for equitable distribution, we learned how it can be done successfully, and we also learned how not to do it. We met some outstanding panchayat representatives and discovered that women's surpanches in Himachal far exceeded the 50% reservation. And this was told to us by the secretary very proudly. We discovered champions. You know, you would think there are only champions in NGOs, social enterprises. You know, we are the ones who are committed to the nation's growth. We found champions among the block and district officers too. Through the inter-department district meetings with free flow of ideas. So it was like a broad brainstorming session. And we found a district horticulture officer who said, I would like to grow winter guava. Think about it. An executive engineer who told us that he would supplement the water pumped up from the rivulet below as per his department. He would supplement it with a rejuvenated spring water wherever he could. A block development officer who shared his enthusiasm. You know, when he came in, he was like, nothing can be done. You know, then we had this session. And then he came out and said, Madam, you know, I think we can do something about it. And then he also shared the travails in execution. You know, as an IS officer, as the secretary of the department, I can take much more liberties in reforming the system, in doing transformational work than a block development officer can. And our job is actually to enable and empower and motivate those people who are working on the ground level. We met project officers and they welcomed scientific-based, evidence-based solutions. And they queried us on projected surplus water to be generated so that they could plan the demand side interventions better. There was a divisional officer, forest officer, and a conservator of forest who pushed us. You know, they were champions. I'm saying they're champions across, and we have to get together champions. And I find champions sitting here in this room. So there was these officers said that, you know, you have given us a that long of the spring and things, but when we go to do the work on the field, we need Google or KML files which pinpoints where exactly we have to do the work. And we pushed our execution partners to do that, and this is all now available on the portal. On the final leg at the state level, we found a champion secretary and a brilliant director of rural development who offered to get works executed under NREGA if other departments fell short of budget, and it happened most of the time. Forest didn't have money, and Jal Shakti didn't have inclination, or whatever combination. we were queried about the paltry estimates of works to be done by the state government, with per spring cost coming to less than rupees 1 lakh. They whispered, "Madam, there's something amiss, you know. The total estimate of works to be done is so paltry. Between forest, Jal Shakti and rural development, it's coming to less than 1 lakh per spring. There's something seriously amiss." And we clarified that that's the whole point of our intervention. Through precise location, identification of aquifers in recharge area, the more precisely you find out the aquifer and the recharge area, the less you cost, because that's the only area you need to work on. We met a secretary who candidly told us they are not here because there are elections in Himachal Pradesh, otherwise we would have had them here. So as this secretary told very candidly that Jal Shakti being an engineering department, we only have engineering solutions which are capital intensive. And he almost said, though I'm putting some words in his mouth, that our pilot was fairly disruptive. We found the underutilized, we discovered, not found, discovered, and he discovered with us, that he had the cadre of hydrogeologists who were not being used at all in anything. We spent hours with each department secretary emphasizing the ground reality as we had ourselves experienced firsthand. And it was only with this that I could tell them that not everything is comfortable on ground zero. That we need to be doing something about it, because we are otherwise everybody wants to be in perpetual denial. I am the best, I know how it's to be done, everything is hunky-dory, nothing is required to be done. But we also met I left out some other people that I need to mention. We found, but the same secretary, the moment I said, "Can you please install automatic weather stations?" "We'll do it, madam." And he installed automatic weather. We didn't have money. You know, these global foundations, we didn't have enough money. We spent time discussing with them. Then there was this principal, chief conservator of forest. And she said, "Madam, I was earlier in FRI, Forest Research Institute. And she said that I have worked on rivers. And why I'm mentioning this, because there are some of you who are working in different aspects of water. And she said that I would love to work on wider climate change. Abhishek here, my very worthy champion, and I consider him a very worthy champion actually to help us today. We also met strong resistance to change, to systems and processes that establish accountability of each stakeholder to defined and time-bound tasks and timelines. I don't know how many people have attempted to bring in such discipline and such strict discipline. And this was as much true of our execution partners as it was of government officers at different levels. We had to deal with transfer of most critical allies. We had elections in the state government and delays, and folks dragging their feet to circumvent the speed and discipline. But we persevered. We persevered with determination, leading by example, even sometimes putting my pension fund, and a firm belief that even the kainat, the universe, supports a good intent. If you wish to do the right thing, people will come together. Karma banta jayega. And today we see the karma here. And supported indeed we were by myriad champions who genuinely wished to change the current reality. It was heartening to find that the IIM-Ahmedabad team, and I'd like to acknowledge the champion professor sitting here with us, who readily offered, he might regret it now, but because I pulled him into a lot of things, but he helped us formulate the collaborative governance framework. He called it collaborative. He said, but what you're doing is collaborative governance. It's a well-established academic thing, but never happened in practice, because practice is different than the academic frameworks that we have. And they found, their team, they went recently for a midterm assessment to Himachal. And they found that the moment has now rightly moved to the community and the field officers. They found the field officers were charged with enthusiasm, the community was enthusiastic. At the state level, it was, so kind of a thing. It's also heartening that IIT Roorkee found evidence of substantial improvement in the spring flows in several springs where we made interventions. And it's all visible on the portal. The village profile, the spring inventory, the KML files, our technical recommendations, the training modules. Remember, Roopa had told me that you need to train people. So all the training modules are available on the portal. The execution of works by the state government, etc. The Watershed 2.0, which was launched subsequently in this financial year, now mandates the inclusion of a spring shed. We of course gave our feedback for subtle policy nudge. The state government is now taking up 500 more springs over and above the 50 odd from our pilot. This provides a very welcome multiplier of our funds and efforts. From the initially it was 1:10. So we were putting like 50 lakhs and the total project cost was 5 crore. With 500 more, it has now gone up from 1:10 to 1:100. For every rupee or the effort that we are putting in, we get a multiplier of 100. And that brings me to the last component of Roopa's brief. Roopa is the one who will come next. Roopa's brief for sustainability. How do we replicate, scale and sustain such transformational initiatives? Yogesh has asked me a number of times, if we didn't, we can't multiply. You know, there's a Didi sitting here, Didi multiplies Didis. So we need to have that multiplier. So we created a portal from the scratch, and it would not be an exaggeration if I say that between Yogesh and me, we have given almost a year of our dedicated commitment to be able to come up with this portal, which is now recently released to the visitors, to any visitor, for better scrutiny and accountability. We mapped the information at the village level, being the basic administrative unit, with various partners and agencies working in sequence or in parallel. It's very difficult to get convergence at the village level without a technological support. The portal maps the tasks and timelines of all the stakeholders, so that together we can achieve the agreed and quantified outcomes. It's a technology execution tool. I think the minister is aware of that, and he had referred in his speech to that. I'm glad. It's a technology execution tool to connect diverse development partners with government at the village level in a seamless and harmonious manner. How do you communicate with government? You know, it's so difficult to communicate. It's difficult even to communicate between two development partners. Each one has his own worldview, has his own attitude, has his own way of doing things. How do you connect to come to deliver a common outcome, a common vision? You know, we share the vision. Everybody sitting in this room shares a common vision, a common outcome. But we all have different pathways, a different worldview. How do we come together in a harmonious manner? That is what this technology tool, we believe, can deliver, and the SP pilot project provides the proof of concept. We have recently opened, as I said, to the visitors for public engagement, visibility and scrutiny. And mind you, there is nothing more than public visibility and scrutiny that keeps everybody going. Now, if somebody doesn't do the work, if the government doesn't do the work, or if the NGO partner doesn't do the work, it will show as delayed tasks. Nobody wants a delayed task against your name. You know, you may tell somebody that the task is in, but if it's visible to public, there's a different kind of accountability that comes in. And this portal is designed for replication and scalability, and is available to all our development partners and government agencies as a foundational block, which can be built upon, which can be customized by you as required. I find several grassroots champions in this hall, and to mention a few based on my limited personal experience, I find Vibha here, Vibha Gupta of Magan Sangrahalaya. And what fascinating to me is that there's so much wonderful work happening. Now, if I were to summarize what she does, she catalyzes local champions to take responsibility, to find solutions. If it's required technology, and I say it's Jugaad technology. We don't need perfect technology, but Jugaad cannot be done by anybody. Jugaad requires intelligence, dedication, commitment, understanding the problem, and a brilliance, which only a Jugaad wala aadmi can tell you. So when I visited there, I found that people are finding local solutions to problems. They are not waiting for the government to give them solutions, but they are finding their own solutions, whether it is in water, agriculture, khadi, livelihood. I find Professor Kannan here. Now, Professor Kannan, what he has done is that he has come up with this spoken tutorial. The spoken tutorial talks to you in your language. So the communication with the community in the last mile becomes easier. I find also GBK, and we haven't had a chance to talk yet, but they are into regenerative farming and marketing. Marketing is a weak link for us. So how do we, when you have to make a big picture, you need to have a collage of components. And what we are trying to do is, our job, we don't know how to do it. We know that we don't know how to do it. We know our weaknesses, we know our strengths, but we are very conscious of our weaknesses, that we really don't know how to work with the community and encourage local people to take ownership of their own lives. We don't know how to communicate effectively with the community in their local language. We don't know how to do regenerative farming, and farming is very critical. I see here sitting Mr. Pran, who has done some wonderful work. So, there are so many people, we talked to some people yesterday, we did some brainstorming, and there are so many people working in their own little silos. They're not coming together to form the big picture. So, my challenge to you today is that when we have so much of inequities growing and we continue to have such high levels of unemployment, painfully high levels of child wasting at 19.3%, undernourishment at 16.3%. I could go on with the statistics. The challenge is to accept our collective failure to the people of this country. There's nobody here who's above that failure, and we must very strongly have that sense of failure. To recognize that each one of us needs the other to make it into a complete collage of our shared vision, where every child has the freedom to dream and has the opportunity to realize their dreams and their full potential. That we need to pitch in and collaborate for execution of large government projects in partnership with the government for scale, speed and sustainability. It's only government which can take us on the path of sustainability. I look forward to each one of you confronting that stark reality and accepting the challenge to come together. Let's affirm that we can do it and believe that together we shall. Thank you, all of you. Abhishek, Roopa is on. Stand by. So you'll now hear, I was mentioning about Roopa. She's a person who actually pushed me into this. And pushed me is not an exaggeration. So she said, Madam, you have to go. So the mission director of JJM, and while Roopa comes, I'll just fill in. The JJM mission directors, I asked him, I said, is there something I can do here? People know my profile of having done some transformational work in government. And he put Roopa after me. And Roopa said, oh, you have to go. This is a brief. You must go. Mentor the state government. So we'll just, Abhishek, whenever Roopa is ready, we are ready. So Roopa is coming online. She was to come here personally, but she couldn't come. She is now the mission director of Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. And she's doing some wonderful things there. So we are like mirror images, and we really enjoy working with each other. ITC, incidentally, I forgot to mention, didn't see you, has done some wonderful work in agriculture. I'm very familiar with their chopal. I'm also familiar with the river thing. But now here, I was mentioning about Roopa. She's a person who actually pushed me into this. And pushed me is not an exaggeration. So she said, Madam, you have to go. So the mission director of JJM, and when Roopa comes, I'll just fill in. The JJM mission directors, I asked him, I said, is there something I can do here? People know my profile of having done some transformational work in government. And he put Roopa after me. And Roopa said, oh, you have to go. This is a brief. You must go. Mentor the state government. So we'll just, Abhishek, whenever Roopa is ready, we are ready. So Roopa is coming online. She was to come here personally, but she couldn't come. She is now the mission director of Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, and she's doing some wonderful things there. So we are like mirror images, and we really enjoy working with each other. ITC, incidentally, I forgot to mention, didn't see you, has done some wonderful work in agriculture. I'm very familiar with their chopal. I'm also familiar with the river thing. mentioning about Roopa. She is the person who... अरे यार बार-बार क्यों play कर रहे हो? Actually, is not an irrigation. Oh, there she is. There she is. Hello, Roopa.
You must stop playing the recording.
Is there something I can do here? People know my profile of citizens of transformation work in progress. And she thought, and Roopa said, oh, you have to go. Anita, it's okay. Chill. Take it easy. So Roopa is coming online. She was coming up on Sunday, but she couldn't come. She's now the mission director of and just say a sentence before Roopa comes to introduce her.
It's already there.
No, she can't hear us. She's not able to hear us.
She has to unmute. You signal to her that she's
अभिषेक जरा उसको बता दो कह दो कि Hello Roopa, are you able to hear us?
So can you hear me now?
Yes Roopa, we can. And very welcome to this session. We are missing you here and we are looking
Namaskar
forward.
everyone. Most respected and dearest Gauri ma'am. I have been, of course, not been very lucky to be able to join you physically there. I was really looking forward not just to join you, but also be just spend a little time in on the soil of Banaras Hindu University, about which we've all read, heard while we were growing up. But unfortunately, I couldn't make it physically there, so my apologies for that. And warm greetings to everyone there on the dais, those who are there in the audience physically, and also who have connected digitally to this wonderful initiative of very intensive 3-day long conference on making ideal villages and transformation for sustainable growth. I would at the outset like to compliment the Wheels Water Council led by Gauri ma'am and Yogesh ji for their unrelenting efforts and going all the way up to Himachal Pradesh, never say die attitude, talk to multiple government organizations and agencies, and today we see the technology tool live, and more importantly than the tool, which is of course the front end face of it, is the kind of process that they followed and the kind of very structured partnership and a great value that they brought in the sector. And this is exactly what we cherish and look for in partnerships. Dear friends, all of us today are in this extremely historic moment where on one part of the world we are having the COP27 discussions. We are ourselves in a very historic junction in the nation where 75 years of independence have been witnessed by this great nation. And here we are poised with challenges, and as I would say, and all of us, all of you would agree, not just challenges but incredible opportunities. But challenges get converted into opportunities when amazing partners like you, with extremely focused work plan, approach, and discipline, join hands with government to set forth and achieve the national priorities. We say that we are working for people's voice. It's actually not the government's voice, but it's the people's voice. And it's the people's voice that gets integrated into the national priority and the national agenda. So when we are talking about water and sanitation, or even for that matter, health, hygiene, environment, all these sectors, today the time is, there cannot be any kind of an ad hocism. Budget no more drives national missions. Saturation, sustainability, and participation drives national missions. And those were times, there were times when we would look at targets, we would look at budgets, we would look at some kind of yearly movement. But here, today the country has set its tone on a very, very different kind of aspirations, and that is leaving no one behind. So the moment we say leaving no one behind, it is gigantic. And as all of us would realize, in a country like India, to leave no one behind and to provide access to equitable and quality services in water sanitation or health hygiene is incredibly aspirational. But this is very much doable. The journey has begun, the journey is going on, and all of you are part of this journey. All of us are working together in this. And as Gauri was just mentioning, the approach and the topic that she has assigned me is to look at the approaches that bridge gaps. In fact, the approach which was just presented for Himachal Pradesh is one such example that actually bridges the gap and strengthens the arm of government and government initiatives. When in 2014, Honorable Prime Minister announced the program Swachh Bharat Mission, at that point of time, 12 crore Indians did not have access to individual household toilets. And the Prime Minister took everyone by surprise when from the ramparts of Red Fort, he spoke of sanitation, spoke of cleanliness, and spoke of access to toilets. And very importantly, he spoke of people's movement. And if you would recollect, that's the very first time when people's movement and Jan Andolan was actually brought in a very big way in any government program. So gone were the times when toilets would be built in targets, the engineers would build toilets, toilet would be looked as an infrastructure. So the approach itself from day one was different. The vision was, this is a social program, this is a people's program, it is not an infrastructure program. In fact, in drinking water also, today under Jal Jeevan Mission, the approach is the same. The entire discussion does not begin with engineering solutions or with infrastructure, and these are, as it is completed as a consensus, and urban local bodies, state governments and the central government and NGO partners all are on board that we cannot look at these only as engineering solutions. So the moment we are talking of social infrastructure, social programs, we have to look at the entire 360-degree approach. So today, in terms of policy the policy is quite aspirational and forward-looking in India, be it in the health or in the sanitation or in the water sector. The core issue is how do we come together and synergize our energies to be able to implement, as is the term which is widely used now, at speed and scale, ensuring quality, and most importantly, we should not build up something which does not stand the test of time. If you go to different villages in India today, one will appreciate and one will be awed with wonder as to the kind of watershed management that was there for hundreds of years. The local knowledge, the expertise on cropping patterns, the expertise in being able to handle water reserves and water resources, the indigenous knowledge to be able to bring in harmony in food, the nature and livelihood is quite incredible. The moment we think of any village in India, what comes to our mind and the way we have seen it as we have grown up is just about blues and greens. So blue and green is how Indian villages looked and felt like. And harmony has been at the bottom of the core way a village has been functioning. So today when we are talking of transformation and sustainable growth, I think the fulcrum of everything has to be this kind of a harmonious balance, wherein not just we drive with speed and scale, access to various services which would be missing and which are missing across different states, the gram panchayats and urban local bodies, but at the same time see that the nuanced balance between nature, environment, the local requirements, the specifics of the area is also maintained. And for that, it is very important that as an approach in every program or in every venture, we cannot afford to have a top-down approach. It has to be bottom-up, and only then the harmony and balance will be maintained, and only then there will be sustainability. And for bottom-up approach, there are different ways in which I was listening to some of the presentations. Some excellent initiatives have been taken to capture people's voice and people's aspiration and change agents driving it on the ground to actually bring about that impact. I always have seen in my few years of career that there are 4 women who drive incredible change in a village, and all of you will agree with me. And this foursome is actually quite an army of change, I would say. Starts off with the ASHA worker, the auxiliary mid-nursing wife, the ANM, the Anganwadi worker, and the village water sanitation committee president or chairman, as it is said in different parts of the country. When these 4 women come together, they literally cover the entire expanse of the phases of a human life. And together, if we just cast a glance at various parts of the country, the incredible stories of change that these 4 women, as a group of change and aspiration, have brought about is quite incredible. The next thing that I would like to focus after this is when we are talking of saturation, it is extremely important that we also look at finances. We look at efficiency, we look at quality, transparency, innovation, and technology. Very often, there could be a tendency to invest in extremely expensive infrastructure, capital-intensive solutions, but for a country like India, which has the kind of challenges that we have, we need very nuanced solutions. And for these solutions, technology, innovation, research, and local indigenous experience and knowledge is extremely important to be incorporated. Therefore, what Gauri was mentioning, evidence-based planning, the correct technology, and that semblance of having researchers, think tanks, academic institutions, and innovation being incorporated as part of any program or mission is extremely important. And as we move forward, and we are today dealing with challenges, it is also very important that digital technology also drives various facets of our work. And today we see every youngster being equipped with some kind of a gadget. So bringing in and incorporating technology for transparency, technology for information, technology for empowering people with the right kind of information. Very importantly, people should also know what to look for and where. So equipping people with the right information at the right time and using digital platforms for this, I see a great scope for partners to bring in this kind of a value to any government program, irrespective of whether it is water or sanitation or health, energy sector, food production. In all these sectors, there is a lot of scope for that. The next thing that I would like to emphasize here, I saw a lot of youngsters in the audience. Today, for example, look at waste. India generates 150,000 metric tons of waste every day morning when we wake up in our cities. And of course, in the villages, it is more of green waste, that biodegradable waste that gets generated. Today is a time when we are talking of circularity, circular economy, how we will take out resource from wealth. So to be able to derive resource from wealth, we need innovations. And for that, we are looking at young minds, brilliant minds, experienced hands to give us solutions which are new because dimensions are changing. For example, I saw recently one youngster who's trying to come up with extremely innovative leather equivalent made out of floral products coming out of the different temples and calling that Florida. Somebody is trying to make extremely warm pashmina-like shawls from chicken feather out of the chicken waste that is coming. Somebody is trying to make a lot of products that go into event management like the one that you are having, which are made out of natural products. So the kind of scope of innovation with the diversity of work and challenges that we have is quite incredible. And I would really like to call upon institutions like yours, the youngsters who are sitting there, to come up, innovate, partner, try. Even if we fail, we learn from that, but we keep on providing solutions to our nation. Then all of us would appreciate that for any program, and specifically water and sanitation, to be successful, we've had an incredible 8 years learning experience from 2014. And if I have to put in 4 major buckets, the key aspects that have brought us wherever that we are, those would be 4 P's, as I keep emphasizing in almost every forum. And it starts with people, as I just said. It is people's aspirations and people's strength that will drive the program. And after that, the second P that I would like to emphasize is partners. Partners like all of you who come in with different kinds of knowledge and understanding and bring in great value. The third important is public financing, about which I have also discussed. How do we make good utilization of public finance so as to reach saturation, so as to have quality with answerability and accountability, and also about cost efficiency. And then the very important thing that I would like to mention as my 4th P is about political leadership. Political leadership drives programs, it brings in vision, it brings in strength. And once there is political leadership backing certain vision for the nation, certain priorities, then automatically synergies start developing. So water and sanitation happen to be 2 sectors today where the political leadership is actually driving it from the front seat. And all of us together, in our own little roles that we are committed to bring about that difference, to take our access of services and quality services towards saturation, and most importantly, to reiterate, in order to bring about the transformation, keep in centrality the principle of harmony and balance, which is very important to the socio-economic fabric of not just the rural India, but India as a nation. I thank all of you for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts. I compliment and congratulate BHU and the entire team of Wheels Water Council led by Gauri ma'am, and all the young participants who are sitting there, and the think tanks and the experts who have been sharing their views and bringing in so much of value to this entire discussion. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so very much, Roopa, for sharing your vision, your approach, your aspirations for this country. Thank you.
Maneesha.
I would now invite Dr. Maneesha, Provost of Amrita University, to kindly share her perspective, her experiences in this domain, please.
उनका स्लाइड लगा दीजिए. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. I thank the organizers to give us the opportunity to present the work which we have done in the community, and it's very heartening to see a lot of change makers in this room, and hope we will be able to collaborate and work together in the future. I come from Amrita Vidyapeetham.
क्या नहीं आता है? तुम लोगों ने सेटअप किया हुआ था ना? अब आ Dr. Maneesha, would you like us to start the panel discussion in the meanwhile, and you can come back later? Please start the panel discussion. Dr. Maneesha, may I request you to please take your seat, and we will start. We are starting the panel discussion. We have some eminent guests here, so we are just starting a quick panel discussion. Dr. Maneesha will come back when her presentation is set up. So, Abhishek, if you could please. Over to Professor Ranjan Ghosh. He is a professor at IIM-Ahmedabad and a very important member of our team. So, over to you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Gauri madam. Thank you all the panelists, everybody here on the dais. If I have only one regret, Gauri madam, you're right. And that's I didn't meet you earlier, and that I didn't grow up studying under you. But it's never too late to begin, and thank you for that. It's a life.
Thank you for expressing that that faith, solidarity. Thank you.
So it's amazing to actually hear from you, and what you already mentioned is that we are witnessing here kind of a watershed, and it's also quite literal moment in terms of how collaborative governance can be actually implemented, and we can see in practice. And this is what Gauri madam spoke is actually blueprint of collaborative governance. So that basically is extending from very important insights by another great scholar and practitioner called Elinor Ostrom, who was the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Economics. I'm sure many of you know her in 2009, where she challenged this whole conception of, or whole prediction by Garrett Hardin in 1968, where he said that there is eventually tragedy of the commons and all resources will get depleted and we will be in a world which doesn't exist. But she challenged. She pointed the flaw in Hardin's argument, which is the ability of the communities, ability of resource users to come together and take charge of what they own. And this is the foundation of what we see. And she presented relentlessly, as we are seeing in practice with Gauri madam. 40 years Ostrom spent trying to collect evidence and convince the global community. She went to Nepal, she went to Ethiopia, she went to India. She studied irrigation systems, which we are working on, and showed that they are more efficient. Many of them are more efficient than the state-owned government-owned irrigation systems, and so on and so forth. And it was so convincing that she was, she could not be ignored any further. Can you please be a bit quiet? Or be a bit quiet. So, she actually provided evidence for which she was recognized for the Nobel Prize. But what brings us to the fact or to the observation that resources do get depleted, tragedy of commons still happens, right? So she pointed to the collective action, the ability to act collectively and communities to come together. But what probably is missing, and which is now been extended by extended research and practice as we see, is the role and support from different stakeholders. So the resource users, we are talking about water here, whether in remote mountainous regions or in watershed different rural areas, we are talking about rural resurgence here. What they miss or what they lack for its resources, they lack direction and they lack an ability to scale up. And that is what collaborative governance can bring in, where the state, where the policymakers, where the civil society, the scientific expertise, if all of this can come together at a platform, provide and basically empower the resource users, empower the community, who are the actual unit of change. The unit of what we see is that is what is going to change eventually bring the transition point. And this is what we are observing. We are trying to experiment, and I'm trying to just document. And with these models, what we are discussing here, with this, I will actually invite Mr. Joe Fernandes to be our first speaker, and he can share his experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we're all trying to keep on time, so I will get immediately started. So as IIT-IIT, we're a foundation of IITs, and we're nationally scaling programs that are proven. And as the name suggests, technology is our forte. So what's exciting this year in this program that we've been working on for a few years is we've used technology to decipher India's water body system. Tanks that are 1 acre to 1,000 acres. And there are 5 lakh tanks. Now we can see them, and they represent 50,000 square kilometers of water capture. When Prime Minister Modi talks about catch the rain, rainwater harvesting, we've got 50,000 square kilometers of capacity that can capture that rain. And what's interesting is these tanks don't just capture the rain, they use gravity to move it between tank and tank. Many of them have been built on subsurface high percolation land that allows the water to recharge the ground. And when we look into the ground, the aquifer flows them in different directions. So we're looking at a 360-degree flow of water. We can also use the technology to see how they're connected to rivers. We use the technology to see how they catch the runoff from hills. And so if you look at what this tank system represents, as a whole, it's an integrated watershed asset. It integrates with all the other assets that enable us to catch water. Rainwater is our largest source of water. And so truly it's an engineering marvel. It's been built for the last 5,000 years. And at that point, they were able to figure this out. And now with the technology, the invisible is visible. So we've also been able to measure the system's performance. And unfortunately, the numbers are not very good. The system is performing at 25% of its capacity today as an average across the country. So think of if you had to perform on just one leg or one arm instead of all your 4 appendages. How would you perform? And so this hobbled system, it's no wonder we're seeing drought followed by floods, or floods followed by drought. We're seeing fallow land growing larger and larger, or we're even seeing rain depleting groundwater. So the silver lining, and this is where I think the convergence, is we're seeing a community-led model that is transforming this across the country. You see, these tanks themselves are natural composting hubs. When it rains, the bark, the flora, the fauna used to get collected in these tanks, and in a few years they would become high, rich silt. And the farmer community used to take this silt. But for the last several hundred years, that practice has been slowly lost. And restoring that practice, which is the community-led model, is creating a win-win-win. So the first is the farm soil is turning fertile. The second is the community is getting water. And the third is the tank system is being sustainably maintained. And so this model has now scaled to 9 states of the country. This year it moved 10 million cubic meters of silt and created 10 billion liters of water. And the biggest contributor of this, more than 75% of the cost of this program, is borne by the community. They are readily bearing this cost because of the benefit of the silt. And that's the amazing part. And now we're starting to see the convergence where central and state governments are supporting the solution in a very, very, very big way. Prime Minister Amrit Sarovar program, Prime Minister Modi's program, has set a goal for 75,000 such tanks to be rejuvenated or restored. Niti Aayog is funding this. This year they funded it in 10 aspirational districts. The 15th Finance Commission, the largest budget for Gram Panchayats, has said that their funds can be used now for desilting of their community tanks. State governments have been creating special schemes. Corporate CSR and foundations are funding it. And so now we can integrate this into corporate and government programs. And technology is playing a big role. Now that we have the technology, we can have any stakeholder look for a water-stressed area, identify the tanks, work with the community to demand that silt, run the program, and ensure that small and marginal farmers are also participating and benefiting. And all of this is run on an app that can be run nationally. And every year this process is repeated. We start with a small cluster of Gram Panchayats, and every year that expands as nearby communities start to demand the solution. And so it is creating what we call multiplicative scaling. Year 1 we did 1 million liters, year 2 100 million liters in an area, year 3 1 billion liters, and so on. And so as you start looking at these multiplicative scalings and do 1 state, 3 states, 9 states, and those are our actual numbers, this year 15 states, and next year the entire country, you're looking at exponential scaling. And so that's the whole model that's very exciting. A community-led model converging with government and corporate priorities to bring back the power of these 5 lakh tanks that really are our national treasure. And it's all based on one simple principle. A community-led model that's restoring their community tank system and reconnecting them to their water. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. I now invite Mr. Surendra Makhijia, who is Senior Vice President of Jain Irrigation Systems, to talk on corporate sector role in holistic water management. Over to you.
Good afternoon. In interest of time, I'm cutting short my presentation, my speech. The sustainability of water is essential for all human activities and for all aspirations for better quality of life. Now, when we talk about sustainability, what sustainability is all about? Is it not working? Okay. Fast man. Check. Sustainability means availability, affordability, and divide of conflict. And this relates especially in case of water. And properly managed water resources provide a foundation for maintaining and improving the quality of life on this planet. Per capita availability of water in this country has gone down to dangerously low levels. Considering that the water is used for various sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, industry, power, environment, fisheries, agriculture, domestic household, the ecosystem must be made sustainable and circular. This puts spotlight on the need to recycle and reuse water and wastewater. For reuse, recycle wastewater for non-potable purposes to prevent the use of potable water for non-potable purposes, and that's very important. The corporates have the unenviable task of water stewardship within and outside the fence. Unlike developed countries where water is shared equally between the agriculture, urban, and the corporates, the industry, in India, nearly 80% of water is used in agriculture alone. And this luxury cannot be allowed to continue because of the competing demands from other sectors. So it is necessary that a dialogue must be held with a diverse set of stakeholders by the industry, communities, and farmers to mitigate the risk of conflict. Why we say that it is the onus of the corporates? Because generally in any ecosystem, presently the industries are seen as outsiders. Initially the people came, then they started doing agriculture, and industry has come at a later stage, and they are seen as a kind of a competitor in respect of various sources, land as well as water. And corporates should integrate sustainable water practices into their enduring core values. This is something which is fundamental to the corporate culture. They have to invest in science and technology to ensure that they produce a lot more with lot less of water. To give you the example, a steel maker should continuously strive to produce more steel per unit of water every time by investing into better technologies and improved practices and systems. The same applies to a farmer growing one or many crops. Outside the gate solution lie in water harvesting, storage, conservation practices, maximizing the value created per unit of water. Now this is the different slides. Earlier we were talking about water use efficiency. Now we're talking about how much of value we can create per unit of water. And that is important. To give you an example, in countries like Israel, they're very short of water. They recycle and reuse water. They don't grow either paddy or rice, paddy or wheat. They grow vegetables and fruits, and they create the maximum amount of value they can do from a limited quantity of water by exporting these vegetables and fruits to countries in Europe and elsewhere. In India, water and energy have become very emotional issues. And unfortunately, 50 to 60% of water is used in agriculture is wasted because of traditional irrigation practices. Therefore comes the issue of adoption of better and more efficient water use efficiency systems like drip irrigation system. In countries like Israel, Austria, Spain, almost 100% of the cultivated area is under drip and sprinkler irrigation system. I'm not here to talk about any particular technology, but I'm just telling you that this is how this can be done. And particularly in India, because 80% of water is used in agriculture, if you're able to make about 10% saving of water used in agriculture, this can provide a whole lot of water for the competing sectors. The other initiatives can be bring down the cost of capital, re-engineering creditworthiness of the farmers, focus on building value chains, infrastructure to lower the cost of logistics, promote agri-processing to avoid wastages. Summing up, invest in technologies that assist in producing more with lot less. Eliminate wastages within and outside the fence. Foster collaborations and cooperation across all stakeholders, geographies and institutions. Design actions in a very collaborative manner. Include the unheard voice. We just heard Roopa, Mishra, Madam talking about leaving no one behind. Okay. So, should I stop here?
Yeah, I think we can. If we have some time, we can come back for questions.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have the Duckworth and Luis spent of time now, so we will do that.
For the
So over to you, Mr. Yogesh Andlay from Wheels Water Council, who will talk about technology for sustainable water.
Good afternoon. Gauri Madam has already explained the entire context in which the Sustainable Water Management Project is being executed. What I'm going to talk about is to make it feasible, what kind of a technology solution that was devised. As has been shared earlier, we had very diverse champion partners with very different kind of working styles, the mechanisms, their own thought processes. They were all required to be aligned to deliver one common service, which is of rejuvenating the spring or getting more water for the villages. Now, how do you bring about this convergence? How do you bring about this convergence in thought, action, everything, and make it sustainable? A portal was designed, and portal was designed, as Gauriji has already shared, in a top-down manner. The entire project was conceived in a top-down manner. What is the outcome that we are looking for? We start with the outcomes, and we break down those outcomes into tasks that will help us achieve these outcomes. And these tasks are executed by multiple different partners. Just to give you an example, as has been shared about this project, there are 3 supply side departments, 3 demand side departments. There are 5 champion partners who are delivering scientific, evidence-driven data, giving recommendations. These recommendations are being executed on the ground by, you can see, 6 departments. Now, if you look at the departments, the government departments, we find that each one is very, very focused on what they do. So, this is a revelation to me that how much focused these departments, these officers are. A person who's working on a area, Manrega for instance, is absolutely buried into Manrega because it's the problem in the work that he's doing is so vast. Now, if we have to bring out convergence between these departments, then we have to have a tool which is simple, which is intuitive, which gives just the right kind of information at the right kind of time. Right? Now, just imagine, to be able to design a mechanism for a holistic water management at a village level, you have to understand what the village is, what the resources are, where the springs are, then do a scientific study of the spring area, say which is the area that you're going to work on so that this spring, the flow, the rejuvenation takes place. Now, once you've done that, we develop a list of works. These, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H has to be done. Now, these works are responsibilities of different departments. And then the department starts working. So you can imagine the complexity of the situation. I mean, I'm just trying to bring about the execution side of it because Gauri has already shared the philosophy, the theory, the whole practice, the way it was whole devised. And I give entire credit to Gauri to be able to visualize such a transformational project given his past experience. Now comes the next question. We have had villagers, we had local government, local NGOs, we had expert scientific organizations. They have done their work. Now the department step in. The department start doing the work. Now these works are being executed under various schemes, Manrega or forest departments, forestation mechanisms or Jal Shakti departments, some scheme. Each department knows what is a task that it has to do. A, B, C, D, very clearly defined. This is a task, these are the requirements, this is the location. Of course, they came back. They came back and said, just giving me the lat long is not sufficient. Can you also give me the map? My field officer and me, I will have an easy communication if I have a map before us. So we go back to the scientific agencies and say, help us make a map of it. And how do you make sure this information is available simultaneously to all the partners? The portal does it. You upload this map, you upload this file, and everybody, right from the rural, the community person, to the NGO, to the government department, to us, it's common available. And that's what the beauty of the portal is. Now, this portal provides, is able to communicate, is able to share information about this kind of a convergence across projects. It can be applied in waters, it can be applied in sanitation, it can be applied in agriculture, anywhere, wherever we are trying to converge multiple different kind of agencies to deliver something common, something good. I just talk here for the moment for the brevity of time, otherwise, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Yogesh. Very nice and summarizing. Over to you, Dr. Maneesha, for sharing your views.
So good afternoon, everybody. So as you can see that I come from Amrita Vidyapeetham, which is a university from far south with multiple campuses from the different parts of the country with 8 campuses. And what makes us different is the principles which the university believes in is education for life, compassion-driven research, and global impact. So what I'm going to talk is how this university is preparing its students to become become champions who can actually take forward the education for life and at the same time solve the global challenges in a compassion-driven approach. So my title of the talk is on the multi-modal technology solutions. As you all know that there are a lot of projects has been brought in by the UN under the clean water and sanitation with access to safe and affordable drinking water, restoration of water related, strengthening participation and efficient use of resources. And government has brought in a number of schemes to achieve this. And we all have heard today from the morning the different schemes which government has brought in. But what is lacking today? they are putting a lot of effort to reach the community to take forward these different schemes. And when I have worked in the different communities, what I had seen is like some of the communities are aware of some scheme, some of the communities are not aware of the other scheme. So what happens is, whatever scheme they believe in, they start overdoing it. So they are not understanding the interrelationships of each of these activities and its impact. And we know that when you look at water sustainability, there is an interrelationship between the water access, water availability, at the same time with respect to the water governance, water quality, and also the awareness. So when they don't know the complete information, when I don't have the complete knowledge, I may have do work on some particular area and which takes forward. Like if I give you just an example, like the water which comes in the Panchayat in Alapad, which is in Kollam district in Kerala, where the water comes through the pipe water. People believe that the pipe water is good. They will basically take the water and store it, and stored for maybe 48 hours. The moment it is 24 is crossed, bacterial regrowth starts. They don't know. So there, the lack of knowledge of water quality is affecting there. So that means there is a lack of information. So now you need to empower the community to take forward this. So let me just jump fast forward from all these things to what is happening is like all the key objectives, whether it is UN or government comes in, we have to work on multiple dimensions, and they have a complex interrelationships which is taking us through the multiple trajectories to multi-scale impacts. And because of that, there is an interrelationship between these resource vulnerabilities to water quality to anthropogenic activities to the health burden which is bringing in. To take care of this, we have come up with an app called Empower Community app, which allows the community to understand and map their resources and take forward of tracking these things. And this is further taken forward in such a manner that they have come up where they have integrated into a geospatial platform which is called Mera Gaon Hamara Jal, where each and every community member is mapping their resources, its quality, etc., and the water quality parameters and practices, which help us in the long run to have a community to know what is their water resources, how is its water access, how is its water availability, and based on that, the local governance and the stakeholder can take the actions. So if you see it is the image which shows that where, it is shown as the Kerala street where there is a lot of wells. They say that what is the well, number of wells I have, or whatever the well, the depth, whatever water level I utilize, or how much I am using, where is my septic tank, how far it is, etc. So this, once they started mapping it, they get into the awareness of their interrelationship naturally, so that they are able to take forward. And from that, we move into the platform where it will actually move towards to the water sustainability indices, where water poverty index, water stress index, etc. in the state level to the household level, to the individual level it comes in, so that we are able to, the local governance system is able to pinpoint where I have to help, what I have to bring in. And thus Amrita has worked on a large work on the clean drinking water solutions and providing sanitation through 4,000 toilets by women building their own toilets, and this 2050 clean drinking water solution with the aim to reach 5,000 communities, where the students and community understand the challenges by themselves, and then based on that they come up with a modular solution to take forward. And also we work on Internet of Things and AI-based implementation for distribution networks of looking into it, how the water equal access and 24/7 access can be brought in. And with 100 communities of drivers, people working to become the water-wise communities and water champions, both women and school children are becoming in taking forward. So we have multiple projects which we have worked on access and safe and affordable called IIM-Ahmedabad water filtration, restoration of water ecosystems. We worked on large river systems called Pampa and the waste management, strengthening participation by Mera Gaon Hamara Jal and water-wise community and water champions, and also more efficient use of research through the forward programs. So each of those things has been translated through different works with the students. Just to give one example, where a case study where this is one of the area in Andhra Pradesh, Vidyapeetham, where the students have understood the water scarcity and they looked into it and how they can come up with a water distribution system, and at the same time they had seen that when the water scarcity comes in summer, the water contamination level is so high that it is a bigger impact on the health, and they brought in the solution for the water purification, which later turned into the larger program of IIM-Ahmedabad. And why it has moved into it, because of that interest, because they worked in the community, they got into the interest, they started analyzing the data from our water resource department's data itself, and they understood that what are the parameters causing largely. So Kerala, if you look, supposed to be like very educated land, but you have the highest coliform and E. coli in the country. So that's where they went into the bacterial contamination, and the university, from the chancellor's side, 100 crore has been put in for giving clean drinking water solution to 5,000 villages. And as of today, they are actually working in multiple levels by bringing in all the different schemes of chemical engineering, computer science, all the different schemes together with community, looking at different parameters, and then bringing in the collaborations with women entrepreneurs, local self-association, and ward level member, and end-user engagement and self-governance and customized technology, so that they have a modular affordable solution, multi-stakeholder engagement and community empowerment, where each of these 300 communities where we have already implemented, the business models are different based on the community socio-political variations. And there were local government ownership models, youth ownership models, community-based. Basically, the community means the caste-based. Some places are very strong with the caste and the community-based ones. So you are able to work with them and bring out. You have to imagine this is done by the students. That is where the difference. And they co-work with, participatively work with the community and then work. And if you see that, they have brought in the PPP model by working together with community, the local government, NGO and the university to bring in this bigger transformation of 300 plus deployments today, with marching towards 5,000, with multiple states in Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Himachal, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra and Kerala. I know that there is a big lack of time. So with this, I would end that in the science and innovation, Amrita University is able to cover more than 10 lakh of beneficiaries in multiple agencies with collaborating organizations from UPFL, King's College London, UC Davis in taking forward this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maneesha, for the brilliant presentation, and my apologies that we were short of time, but brilliant presentation. Thank you. Let me now introduce Dr. Asit, Professor Asit Biswas. Professor Asit Biswas is a very well-known international expert. He is a holder of the Stockholm, so he's a holder of the Stockholm Award. So over to you, Dr. Asit. You are on, Asit. Just tell him that. Please try and speak. Unmute kar dijiye, please. Unmute. You are on, Asit. Can you hear us? Yes. उनका अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं आप? We can hear you now. Asit, can you please try and speak into the mic? Unmute करिए एक बार बोलो. Asit, can you please unmute your system? On this side. Asit, can you please speak? We can hear you. Asit, can you please?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Asit, we are able to hear you. Please go ahead. Yes, हमें कनेक्ट कर दीजिए प्लीज. मुझे अनम्यूट कर दीजिए. Asit, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Unmute करिए please. Asit, please go ahead. We can hear you. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Asit, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes. Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, It's a pleasure to address this Rural Ideal Village Conference. I think it is very much needed, and I regret very much not being able to meet you today. Last week, I was in Delhi, and both Professor Pratahala and I spent considerable time with Gauri. And what impressed us is her dynamism, her vision for the future, and what she has done so far. It is truly impressive. I also listened to some of the speeches and discussions this morning. I would like to put in my few words on that. For India, villages are very important. I recall a discussion I had with late Pranab Mukherjee when he was the Minister of Finance. And Minister Mukherjee then told me, and later President Mukherjee, Minister Mukherjee then told me, the real finance minister of India is not himself, but the real finance minister is monsoon. If India has a good and timely monsoon, the GDP automatically goes up. Everything, the rural areas become richer, they produce more production, and it is a monsoon that dictates India's finance in many ways. So now what we're trying to do, what Gauri and others are trying to do with the ideal village is this way very uplifting to see what can be done. Let me just share with you some of my views. Over the last 60 years, I've been working in the water, environment, and the development field all over the world. And many times what we do is we try to reinvent the wheel. Not only reinvent the wheel, sometimes even the wood with which the wheel is made of. Roopa made some very good comments, and I really appreciate that. And one of the points he made is we should go ahead with evidence-based planning. It's very important that we consider that and what are the evidence. Now, for rural water supply, the first thing we need to ask is how much water does a rural Indian or an urban Indian need to lead a healthy and productive life? Because without this information, we cannot plan anything. Unfortunately, if you look at it, no one in India has done such a study that how much water is needed. Ministry of Urban Affairs has said that for cities, 130 liters of water is needed. The current program for the rural areas speak of 55 liters per person per day. So the first question we need to ask is, what is the scientific evidence on the basis of which we are taking these figures? Ladies and gentlemen, I have to submit to you, there is absolutely no scientific evidence on these figures. In fact, if we look at all over the world, only country that has made such a study on how much water a person needs to lead a healthy and productive life is Singapore. In 1965, when Singapore was very similar economic situation as in Delhi or Chennai or Mumbai, they did a 10-year study to see how much water is needed to live a healthy and productive life. And this study came to the conclusion that you need a minimum of 75 liters of water to lead a healthy and productive life. Beyond 75 liters, there is no effect on your health, or on medical conditions, hospital admissions, or any other issue. So we have to thus assume that India, in very similar tropical conditions, probably would be around 75 liters per capita per day. So if we start from there, then the question comes, in the urban areas, why are we using 130 liters per capita per day? And why are we using 55 liters per capita for the villages, which is not enough to lead a healthy and productive life? It is good to have a level of 55, but we have to plan for more. And reports, analysis currently now from other hot countries like Mediterranean countries now indicate that perhaps 75 to 80 liters of water is enough for the urban and perhaps rural areas. Now then, the first question comes, how do we plan for it? One of the things we are not doing in India, and I spent considerable time discussing these issues last week in Delhi, we're not doing in India, we're not giving enough thought on how to manage water quality and how to manage wastewater. We are going to provide, let's say, 55 liters of water to every villager. That is excellent progress. And in fact, it is a remarkable progress because for the first time in my 60 years of work in this area, I find that the top policymakers are giving water supply and sanitation a high political priority, which simply did not exist before. So my hats off to the Modi government to giving high priority to water supply and sanitation. But we need to start thinking about what do we mean by water supply and sanitation. Even if we provide 55 liters per capita per day to rural villagers, we need to think now, how do we ensure that that 55 liters of water that individual uses, how the wastewater is treated? Because the biggest problem is after the water is used, much of it becomes wastewater. And in India, and growing up in Balasore, in Orissa, I know that when the water comes to the house, and when it came first to our house, that wastewater disposal is a big problem. And one of the biggest problems is you see puddles of water outside the house, which is a fertile ground for mosquito breeding and for issues like malaria and dengue. So we have to start thinking about not only providing water to the houses, but also how to take wastewater from the houses so that these problems do not arise. Here, traveling all over India, it's all parts of India. But India is very different from Punjab to Arunachal Pradesh. In Punjab, when I go to the rural areas, what I see, the people are well off. They are using reverse osmosis in the villages to clean water and drink. But what we are not thinking about is what happens when you use reverse osmosis even in Delhi or Moga in Punjab. In Delhi, everyone uses RO, at least everyone I know uses RO. But I did not find one study which sees what is the quality of water that is coming out after RO on the other side. And if people are changing membrane as frequently as needed, because if you don't change membranes as frequently as needed, the membrane becomes the main sources of pollution. So we need to start thinking about many of these issues, side issues, not only providing water. We talked about sanitation. The biggest mindset change that is needed now in India is wastewater is a resource. It is not a waste. Why do I say that? Because wastewater is a major source of energy. If we see now in different parts of the world, let me give you some examples. Examples like Odense, a town in Denmark, now gets treats all its wastewater from the energy produced from the wastewater. Even after that, it has 60% excess energy that is extracted from wastewater that is sold to the grid. There is no reason why cities like Delhi, Benares, cannot treat all its wastewater and then generate energy from wastewater. And wastewater is also a source of fertilizer. Use it for productive purposes. So we have to change our mindset, and when we talk wastewater, we have to start thinking differently. Also, in Scotland, for example, wastewater is a major source of it. Small village like Dumfries, now the district heating in winter is provided by wastewater. And these are some of the ways to reduce the carbon footprint of the future by using wastewater for productive purposes. Now, few things I'd like to submit to you. Water management is not rocket science, either for urban areas or for rural areas. We know what is to be done, and we have known for a long time. What it needs is political will and top-down and bottom-up approach. There must be enabling policies in place, and there must be bottom-up approach to make that possible. Top-down approach does not work, and bottom-up approach, in my view, and after 60 years of experience, exclusive bottom-up approach will not work. We have to have a mixture of top-down and bottom-up. How do we do that? And that is a major issue we are facing now. But when we look at water management, urban water or rural water management, I suggest we don't look at, we look at what other countries, other developing countries have done. You will be surprised to hear that the capital of Namibia, Bantu, for some 50 years now, has been treating its wastewater, then using the wastewater as a direct source of potable water to its capital city. And 50 years they haven't had a problem because they have a good monitoring system of the whole process. If Bantu can do it, why cannot cities like Delhi do it? Because Delhi has much better capacity, better technology, and more wealth than Bantu. Similarly, if we look at the rural areas, I see tremendous advances in small towns, small villages like small villages of Morocco, which perhaps could be some of those examples could be used successfully in India. So instead of developing new areas, we need to look at what other countries, other developing countries have done, which are worth looking at and see why we are succeeding. If we look at even Phnom Penh, which is a capital city of Cambodia, Phnom Penh's now key performance indicator of Phnom Penh Water Supply Authority, which is a public body, is, most people will be surprised to hear, is better than London, better than Paris, better than Los Angeles. How did we do it? And this is where I think Gauri's platforms he has, digital platforms he has done, perhaps some of this international experience can be put in there so that people can see what is possible and what can be done. The major problem I see in India, both for urban and the rural area, is the issue of the climate change, which is briefly mentioned by a few speakers, and the extreme weather conditions, floods and droughts, and high temperatures. These are now going to be a fact. Even if we reach net zero by 2050, which is an ambitious target, the amount of greenhouse gases already in the atmosphere will make sure that climate, the next 40 to 50 years, will continue to be erratic and difficult. And the problem we're talking about, the tank and the tank, the issue is, if you have prolonged drought, and California now has a 22-year drought, Australia had a 10-year millennial drought, if we have a 10-year drought, a 20-year drought, what happens to these villages? And institutes like IIT, BHU and others and IITs, they need to start thinking about what do you do when the tanks that are rejuvenated do not have water, when because of prolonged drought, which will be. I remember in my house in Glasgow, our pond used to be, in some summers, the pond we had used to dry up completely in the summer. And then winter, it was full again. So how do we get enough water when the tanks are dry because of continued drought? These are important problems, and academia and IITs and the others need to start to think about it. Finally, I am optimistic of India's water future. I should say cautiously optimistic of India's water future. If the technocrats and the civil servants are allowed to do what is best for the country without interference, that we can show that India's water problems are solvable. We'll have difficulties, but they are solvable. So, in this connection, one of the issues in India's urban areas is how India's institutional arrangements. The average stay of the chief executive of Bangalore Water Supply and Drainage Board is about 12 or 14 months. I submit to you, no bright person, even a genius who comes to become the head, and they are all IAS officers. I have great respect for their knowledge and experience, but even them coming to a sector, learning what is to be done, then making a plan, it cannot be done unless they have a longer stay. So in my view, Delhi's water problem and all the megacities' water problem are not going to change very much unless we change the institutional structure and the management structure of the Delhi Jal Board. If you give a highest officer a 3-year or 4-year stay with a definite KPIs to be performed, as is done in Singapore within those 3 years, and his or her annual performance evaluated, I submit to you 60% of Delhi's or Chennai's or Mumbai's water problem will be solved with the existing resources and existing conditions without any difficulty. So we need to start looking at not only that we don't have enough water, but how we are managing water. Because my view is India does not have a water problem because of lack of resources. It makes life difficult, but that can be solved. But India's real problem is real crisis coming because of poor management practices. Many of these are changing, but more changes are necessary. But I'd like to conclude by saying that what Gauri and others are doing are good hopes for the future. And I have no doubt that in 10 years' time, water situation in India, especially for drinking water, will be much better than what it is now, even though India's population and urbanization will be significantly higher in 10 years or 20 years' time. With that, I would like to conclude. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views with you.
Thank you very much, Asit, for that very perceptive, very deep understanding and sharing your suggestions, your recommendations based on your wide experience across the globe. And we now invite Dr. Cecilia to deliver her keynote address, please. Dr. Cecilia. We have a recorded message from her, so we'll be playing that. Sorry, we have eaten into your lunch time, and while Cecilia is here, somebody, we can sit here, listen to her, or we can move for lunch. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience, and thank you all the students. Here you heard Roopa, you heard everybody say that it is you who has the capacity, the passion, the determination, and the wherewithal to do things differently. So let all of us, let me very gratefully thank the audience, the wonderful audience, and all of you. Together we can and we shall. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's give a big hand to the audience for being so wonderful. सॉरी आप लोग से सुनने का टाइम नहीं मिला मगर हम लोग आपसे सुनना चाह रहे थे आई एम सॉरी एक बार हम लोग उधर खड़े होंगे ऑडियंस के साथ
It is estimated that between 75 and 80.
Warm greetings to honorable dignitaries, learned. I, Vanshika Vikram, welcome you all to this track on energy and environment. I'd quickly like to welcome our respected co-chairs for the session, Dr. Rahul Walawalkar sir, President, India Energy Storage Alliance and MD of Customized Energy Solutions India Private Limited. I also welcome Dr. Rashmi Gupta ma'am, founder and MD Vision Mechatronics as a co-chair for the session. Today, we have with us some eminent speakers who will be shedding light on the topic energy and environment. So we have with us Shri Gauranga Das sir, Director Govt Eco Village, Ms. Svati ma'am, founder Sustaintech India Private Limited, Shri sir, Director Customized Energy Solutions, Dr. Rashmi Gupta ma'am, as already mentioned, founder and MD Vision Mechatronics Private Limited, and Dr. Setwa sir, Chief Scientist, CSIR, National Environmental Engineering Research Institute. I would like to request Dr. Rahul Walawalkar sir to welcome our esteemed guests with bouquets, mementos, and shawls.
I'll take the last.
hand over the podium to Dr. Rahul Walawalkar sir to introduce our speakers and take the session forward.
So thank you very much, and thank you for all the participants for being here till end of the day. So we had a very good kickstart for the energy track with Dr. Chetan Solanki laying the need for action. And we have here all the amazing panelists who are operating on ground, who are implementing initiatives which are making a difference on ground. So without taking further time away from the session, I would like to start with Sri Gauranga for his opening presentation. Okay. So we'll start with Swati Bhogle. Yes.
Chetan is waiting for with the assumption. Chetan, I can very soon. Will not go.
Okay.
Thank you. I think somebody can do my slides. But in the meantime, let me just tell you that I think I would like to thank Dr. Rahul and the entire team of in Ideal Villages for calling me here to participate in this very important session. I made a lot of good friends again here. I made a lot more friends. Other thing also is that I think we are meeting at a very important time and on a very important subject. Time because while global leaders are debating nationally determined commitments, NDCs, in Sharm el-Sheikh, I think what we should be doing here is talk about locally decided choices, because we are all practitioners, quite a few of us, and so we should put forward the agenda of people who cannot come and participate in these type of forums. So that's what we will try to do. But today I think I will just begin with some information, some data about energy for cooking, and then talk of what kind of transitions are required and what kind of transitions are possible, given that so many people are really suffering from indoor air pollution and the country is affected by deforestation as well. Yeah, next slide please. Yeah, so why should we be discussing clean cooking or cooking energy at all? Because about 800 million Indians are still cooking on traditional wood fires, even if they have an LPG connection. This means that 216 million tons of biomass is burnt inefficiently in cook stoves annually, roughly equal to 324 million tons of carbon dioxide or 2.4 million hectares of scrub forests denuded annually. I must thank my colleagues my friends from World Bank for giving me all this kind of data. And then traditional wood fires are the largest source of pollutants with adverse impact on health and the environment, especially on the health of women and children. And it is estimated that in the year 2019, there were about 1.2 million premature deaths in India due to household air pollution. I'm not sure I agree 100% with this number, but whatever it is, the number is very large and is very disturbing. So I just leave it irrespective of what the number says. In the energy context, again, we have estimated that annual consumption of energy for cooking in India is 1,104 terawatt hours. And 13% of this energy is coming from traditional biomass. The rest could come from electricity, LPG, etc. The goal of the government has been, when it announced 5 years ago its draft national energy policy, was to roughly halve this consumption of energy through energy efficient interventions. But I think now, 5 years later, and with the kind of people that have collected here, we can be a little more ambitious. And we can also trigger a thought process, not just for energy efficiency in cooking, but also for net zero cooking by the year 2050. we won't have any choice but to go in that direction, because by 2050 it is expected that the world will be fossil free. Again, clean cooking addresses 4 of the SDGs: good health, well-being, gender equality, climate action, affordable and clean energy. But I think it is important that if we want to seriously address all these 4 SDGs, we must understand scaling of clean cooking interventions to be able to address these sustainable energy goals. Without scaling, we are not going anywhere. And that seems to be the biggest challenge for all clean cooking practitioners, researchers, everybody. How do you scale clean cooking? Some more data and more projections. UN projects that India's population in 2030 will be about 1.5 billion. I think we've crossed 1.4 billion already. And the International Energy Outlook projects that in 2030, 580 millions will still be fully or partially dependent on solid fuels for cooking, which means that India will miss the SDG 7.1 target by 2030. What we've seen is that if you're talking in percentage terms, we have seen a 15% decline in the share of population that is relying on solid fuels. People say dirty fuels, but nothing is dirty. I don't like to use that word. But what happens is, because the population is growing, even if the percentage numbers are declining, you still find that the number of people who are cooking and dependent on solid fuels is not coming down. We've had a very successful LPG scheme of the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, PMUY, but estimates are that even 40 million households will still be left out of this program upon completion of this program. We are near complete, but these are people who would never, either so remote or so unaffordable that they would still continue to be left out of the program. So let's look at how cooking energy patterns have changed. This is the year about data on 2012. We find that in rural India, about 60% of the population was cooking with solid fuels, you could say, or dirty fuels, or whatever it is, but not clean fuels. Let's just say that. At the same time, when you're looking at urban India in 2012, we find that 68% of urban India were using clean cooking fuels, largely LPG, and I think some amount of induction cook stove. So the focus of clean cooking, based on this chart of 2012, should clearly be rural areas. Now let us look at what the numbers look like in 2021. Look at the urban areas, we find that about 91% of urban people are cooking on LPG or induction cooktops. But whereas in the rural areas, we find that about the 25% are continue to use exclusively solid fuels, and about 19% partially solid fuels, partially biogas, which means about half the rural population is still using traditional cook stoves. What this tells us, the difference between 2012 and 2021, is that the concept of stove stacking, that is the concurrent use of multiple stoves or fuels for cooking, is now a reality. It's a more recent intervention, and it just shows us that transitions are happening. Whether at what rate, for whom, etc. is different, but the concept of cooking energy transitions, I think, has taken root, primarily because of the PMUY. So what do we mean by cooking energy transitions, at least for the sake of this conference? I would like to say it should be complete eradication of traditional smoky kitchen fires from kitchens by 2030, shift to renewables by all for cooking by 2050, and every cooking energy device should adhere to safe, healthy cooking with emissions adhering to WHO standards. Of course, WHO continues to revise its standards, but we should be almost there. What should we be doing immediately? Our immediate attention must now be focused on the 500 million households that would continue to cook on wood fires even in the year 2030. Most of these are remote, rural, forest fringe tribals who live in inaccessible areas. Right? But what we should be doing now is planning for this transition and building the ecosystem for this transition, because as Chetan has told everybody, we cannot wait. So what are the barriers for clean cooking? One is everybody keeps talking of awareness, accessibility, LPG, affordability, but that's not all. That's more for mature products like LPG. We were using these words in connection with the LPG program, but when we go into new technologies, emerging stoves, emerging fuels, we will have identified many more barriers. We realized that LPG would be a part of the cooking mix till 2050, which is okay. But post-COVID, one thing that we have seen is that every household is spending about 7 to 10% of their monthly income to be able to afford LPG, which means that they are giving up on some other factors to be able to afford LPG. Most likely, what is being compromised is girls, education of girls, health, safety, etc. of girls. So that is of particular importance, that girls should not be, their needs should not be compromised. What are the enablers for this transition? Enabling policy, we've said this so many times, innovations across the supply chain, not just in product, but in process, in financing. We need all kinds of innovations. We need behavior change campaigns. We've seen that many foreigners are coming into India to talk of behavior change campaigns in an environment and for a people whom they don't know, whom they don't understand. So the behavior change as conceived by, say, University of Bhogle is just not relevant to Indian conditions. We need our own understanding of what is the behavior that needs to be changed and how to do it. Addressing affordability and accessibility issues. Rahul, please tell me when my time is up. Huh? Yeah, maybe. More enablers will be identified in course of time. I'll just run through these policy recommendations. What we need is short-term, long-term interventions starting now, and now means right now. Clean cooking should be made a development goal and a priority. Focus on rural areas I have mentioned before, and invest in innovation, sensitive financing, and ecosystem building. As far as innovation goes, I think we must have a multi-RE, multi-fuel, multi-stove approach. Incentivize products, process innovations for RE-based cooking. Popularize modern biogas. I'm a great fan of biogas, but I don't see why it's not taken off the way it should. Develop thermal storage batteries. Rahul, particularly for you. We talk of electric batteries, but I think thermal batteries are very important, because if you look at India's overall energy consumption, I think thermal energy constitutes more than electrical energy. Yeah. And again, decentralization, all of us have been talking about it. We need to reduce the cost of solar cooking. Behavior change campaigns, very important. People are not being able to address it at all, because I don't think enough social scientists are working in this space. We have to make renewables-based cooking affordable, with whether it is with subsidies, whether it is incentives, whether it's sensitive financing, whatever. We don't see PAYGO kind of options, which are very popular in Africa, come to India. And we should make renewable-based cooking accessible as well. Build the ecosystem, train, incentivize stakeholders. I wish there was some kind of discussion on this aspect in skilling programs, but maybe we haven't sensitized the skilling group adequately. And the transition will pay very rich dividends for people and the planet. So I think I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Svati.
Can we take questions
yeah,
for her
if
now?
there are one or two questions, so we can quickly take questions, because she needs to rush for to the airport.
Otherwise, also I think Nitin can answer. Either of the Nitins can answer.
No, any questions, please, let's take.
Wow, the audience has understood everything perfectly, no questions.
Examples are missing, but I think she's rushing through.
No, she'll give you example. Ma'am, please.
किसका एग्जाम्पल चाहिए और कितने एग्जाम्पल चाहिए?
You said sustainable cooking and behavior change, etc. So if you have tried it and it has succeeded.
So behavior change.
So
behavior change. We have had village level meetings, but the entire behavior change story was completely captured by LPG, and there was no behavior change for. Say, do you have ventilation in your kitchen? Do you have, why are you not using biogas? So always we've seen that one technology, one idea just runs off with everything else. So we need behavior changes for clean cooking, for improved cook stoves, for biogas, for e-cooking, etc. So that people continue to use a mix of fuels and not 100% relying only on one fuel.
So that's a very important point, and I think Chetan mentioned in his remarks about need for looking into all aspects, identifying why we are using certain energy, which form of energy we are using, and then using it more efficiently. So all those forms need to be done, and many times people expect policy interventions to solve all the problem, and I think maybe the example what you gave, I think, is a classic example where even government is now realizing that yes, it was a good success story from point of view of clean cooking, but it is not a sustainable way even for the government in terms of just distributing the cooking cylinders and then expecting people to use it in a sustainable fashion. So that's where I think we need to have.
Yeah, so one last point is that don't expect 100% success, because we can never go to the field with a mature technology unless it fails, people give feedback, there is version 2, version 3, version 4, it will never succeed. So be prepared for failure, invest in failure, but learn from failure. And that is how we will have the mix of fuels and products that we need. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Before inviting actually Gauranga, I wanted to acknowledge also contribution of Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee, who has been spearheading this initiative, especially the energy track from the Wheels Global Foundation. Also Dr. Ashok Das, who is the co-founder and CEO of Sun Moksha and a well-known name in the mini-grid area. He could not be with us in person because he's out of country. And also Dr. Sundar Kamath, who has spearheaded this entire energy and environment track. Sorry for missing their introduction in the initial opening remarks. But now, without further delay, we'll take
First a photo and then first a group photo and then. Can you just take this off and put the main session manager.
He's part of this track, no?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a part of us. One photo with thumbs up also, everyone is. Thank you.
Now, third time is a chance.
So you can switch on this, reset the timer also, because we give very long spiritual discourses, In 15 minutes? 15 minutes?
Yeah, Gauri, if you can keep it in 10 minutes,
Yeah,
you can take some 20
Keep 10
you
only.
can take it 10.
You might take it
10 कर दीजिए उसको. So thank you very much for giving me this platform. I'm going to establishing the 17 SDGs. So the idea was we wanted to connect the city to the village, and we found that what is the greatest need of people in the city? The people in the city are looking for peace. Anxiety is one of the biggest pandemics. 370 suicides every day, 300 million people across the world going through stress. And they are looking for peace. And people in the village are looking for paisa. So we thought, can we connect peace to paisa? That was the idea, that let's have tourism for people in the city and rural development for those in the village. So the three pillars of Govardhan Eco Villages: spirituality, sustainability, and social impact, harmony with the self, harmony with the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with community. So we are working with 120 villages and more than 3,000 farmers. We have what is known as Wadi program, where we are doing agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, multi-cropping, and training the farmers that you can actually make your fertilizers and insecticides with cow dung and cow urine. To get them out of NPK farming is not so easy. So you have to give them hand holding, and also to show that keeping a cow can be very useful beyond just milk. So that has been very powerful. The second SDG which we have tried to accomplish or try to create some impact is zero hunger. And as many of you are aware that ISKCON is already famous for 3 million meals every single day across midday meals. But also in the district of Palghar, we have been serving as what is known as hunger-free Palghar. One of the biggest challenges which we find is that because of hunger, the women are highly anemic, malnourished, and it affects the next generation. And the cycle of poverty and hunger and malnutrition thus continues forever. And interestingly, India has this double burden problem in the rural places, where even those who have the food do not have the right kind of nutrition. As far as healthcare is concerned, one of the biggest challenges we have found on the ground, although we are running 4 primary healthcare centers, is India's statistics is 14 lakh doctors in India, 7 lakh doctors are Ayurvedic and naturopathy, 7 lakh are allopathic. Out of the 7 lakh, 1.5 lakh are for 80 crore rural population, and 5.5 lakh are for the remaining 50 crore urban population. And most people who are doctors do not want to live in villages, and we face extreme problem because of that. If you ask them why you don't want to stay, they say there is no English medium school for my kids in future. And then when you ask the teachers, can you set up a school, they say there is no hospital in the village. So who will come first is a big dilemma. So some of the people who are very close to us, they just staged a walkout, and ultimately I went to Dr. Pratap Reddy of Apollo and said, let's set up some telemedicine centers, because that seems to be one of the only hope. Otherwise you have Ayurvedic person sitting and giving allopathic prescription drugs in primary healthcare centers. That's the ground reality. Education wise, 27 crore students across K to 12 in India, 3 crore in university systems. But you may be shocked to know that at 12th standard there is an 88% dropout rate from K to 12, and only 12% of the students who enter the kindergarten enter into the college system in India. So there is such a huge dropout. So we are trying our bit, and we are very aware of the fact that education comes from the Latin word educare, which means to bring that which is within. And so we are very focused on the fact that the main purpose of education is to establish the right intention. Why there is so much of anxiety? Because intention is at 4 levels as given in the Gita. The lowest level is intention due to fear. Higher than that is intention due to desire. But both fear and desire as intentions put you constantly in anxiety. Only when you go beyond the tamogun and rajogun and come to the sattvagun, and the intention comes to the level of duty, then some degree of sanity and peace prevails. And then the highest is intention caused by love. So traditional Indian education was focused on having a culture which would transform the people and improve their intention. So teachers are not just supposed to be carriers of information, but they are supposed to transform the intention of the students from working just based on fear and desire, but come to the level of duty and love, and that's what we are trying to do. Gender equality, we have various women empowerment programs, self-help groups, more than 300 self-help groups, and we are training the women to have various kinds of skills by which they can add additional income to their families. Then SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. As all of you know that 97.5% of the global water is salt water, only 2.5% of the water is fresh water. Out of that, almost 99.97 of that water is in glaciers or in groundwater. So what you see outside in the form of rivers and the fresh water we see is only very small percent of 0.3%. Therefore, it's very important, although Palghar district gets almost 3,500 millimeters of rain, still, if there is no proper intervention and rainwater harvesting is not done and we do not provide the proper facilities, very soon we see that the farmers, in spite of having the water in the rainy season and just after that, they lose access to that. So therefore, we teach farmers how to do hydrogeological survey. Otherwise, when we were informed about hydrogeological survey, Dr. Himanshu Kulkarni from Pune Aqua Dam, they quoted us almost 6 lakhs. And then some of our monks said, hey, why to pay 6 lakhs for hydrogeological survey? We have a villager who can take a coconut in the hand and go around, and wherever the water is, the coconut will start rotating. And the best part of that idea, it costs only 200 rupees. When I told it to our architect Chitra, she said, if you employ that technique, then I'm out of the project. And therefore, it's sometimes challenging to actually inspire people to follow a scientific methodology. And as far as clean energy is concerned, yes, the solar is there, the biogas is there, but I really had found the ADPM, animal-driven prime mover, very interesting, where the bull power could be used and using a gear and shaft system getting the water out. But the problem in that we faced, but the bull was energetic, the guy behind the bull used to get tired. And he would go on strike now and then. So, having experienced a lot of interventions on the ground, I have no romance left with any of these techniques because we have seen the difficulties and challenges in the implementation in many of these. And then next is decent work and economic growth. When they do not have proper land, we help them set up some small shops and we train them. And also we have a 70,000 square feet skill development center we have created, the largest in Maharashtra. And we have created 400,000 mud blocks on site, and we host people regularly. They come here from different parts of the world as part of SDG 10, reduce inequalities. They are coming to see what the villagers do and learn from the villages, which is very, very important. And then as part of spiritual and sustainable ecotourism, we have recreated Vrindavan forest with 12 forests and 7 temples, because why all the spiritual places have to be in few places only? We can recreate those places. That's the idea. And so, how does all of this fit in? Unless people learn how to control themselves, because discipline is the fusion of intention with action. So we are teaching wisdom, Ayurveda and yoga, helping people change and transform their lifestyle as part of United Nations Faith for Earth program. And I've been appointed as a United Nations Faith for Earth counselor. And then conferences for climate action. And this was very interesting, where we have a pyrolysis plant which converts plastic into diesel. And this is for liquid waste, for plastic waste especially. And what we have is conservation of seeds, which is very important. We had so many varieties of indigenous seeds which need to be conserved. And peace, justice, and strong institutions and collaborations for the same. And thus we are trying our little bit to implement the 17 SDGs at the Govt village. I'd like you to play that 1-minute video, sir, so that it gives you a summary of what we have been trying to do. So, the last one is a 1-minute video.
Rampant illiteracy, malnutrition, and lack of infrastructure. This is the story of Wala, one of India's most backward tribal areas. However, since 2010, ecotourism has become a lifeline for this region. Govt Eco-Village's sustainable development model, which is based on harmony with the self, the environment, and the divine, has helped employ over 300 tribal families. More than 60,000 tribals have been provided free medical care. 30,000 free meals are provided to school children every day. over 60 bore wells have been installed. More than 300 families received training in organic farming. Govt and Eco Village has transformed the lives of the most deprived communities in the world.
Thank you very much, Ranjan, for sharing the complete holistic approach what you have taken. This is interesting. Now we are switching gears, and I have my colleague Nitin Akhade who will share about the work which is happening when using mini grids, how to develop economic development activities. So Nitin, handing it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. So I'm very much fortunate today on the dais. Like I have my boss or my superior mentor. Then Gauri, who is like my spiritual mentor. Right from my engineering days when I was in Mumbai University, first year, right now, the people came, right, ISKCON people, and they used to catch students, right? And then in that way, right, I was really fascinated by the process. And then that's why Nitin sir is my mentor for PhD. And then Svati Bhogle was my mentor for my Clean Energy Access Network, where I took my first job to travel into India and see like, can we develop some rural interventions? So this is very humble opportunity for me to see like what we can give back to the society with these all beneficent mentors. Thank you all. So yeah, so I think the presentation is not in screen. Yeah, now it's there. I just see it's going. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, so rural economic development, small and medium scale industries. Timer reset करेंगे. So it will be mix of Hindi, English, not Marathi though, but you can try that because almost all of the speakers on the dais speak Marathi, but we'll continue with English. 10 minutes, yeah, no, 15 minutes is more than 10 minutes. 10. Yeah. So we can see these beautiful mini grids, right? So we are going to see what we are doing in this rural India, in a special state called Jharkhand, right? Where we get 40% of our minerals from the country. But again, in that part of the country, we have tremendous 19 aspirational districts out of 24, categorized by Niti Aayog. So what CS is all about, and then we can deep dive into what we are doing. It's a global MNC working on developing energy management solutions, spanning over US, Mexico, Northern America we can say. Then we have offices in India, especially in Delhi and Pune, then Vietnam and Japan also. So we are developing hardware and software solutions, but what actually we do as a part of this rural economic development, that will be a topic of discussion for today's session. Apart from that, we work in all these 4 areas, consulting in energy storage especially, which Rahul leads this, and then storage IQ and subscription services. R&D lab we have for testing batteries, and then Comets, we have our own market assessment tool for designing systems, and then power trading, which Netra is managing assets and also doing power trading. And this is one of the area where we are trying to integrate all the industry players. It's an alliance, Industry Alliance, India Energy Storage Alliance, which Rahul is the president and MD of CS India, and this is a coalition of almost 150 plus energy storage companies across the country, across the globe I can say. And we run a number of initiatives like IESA Academy, providing free training modules on storage, then Women in Energy, Move for Mobility, and other initiatives. And now this is one of the initiatives which we are running, is called Micro, a rural economic development program aimed at creating sustainable economical microgrid systems. So what we usually do, हम गांव में जाते हैं, right? हम identify करते हैं village, जहाँ पे, घूमना अच्छा लगता है, but I think you are constrained me.
Can do one thing, take this one.
हाँ, this will be amazing. Hello? Hello? Yes. So, what we do, actually we find out the village, we see like, can we do some economic development activity which can generate some livelihood opportunities for local communities. So यहाँ पे आप कुछ images देख रहे हैं, solar panel है, दीदी कुछ कर रही है, machines है 2-3, dryer है, बहुत सारा technical चीजें हैं, we'll see what it is all about. So what is this micro? We are working in 3-4 areas, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, and Northeast also we have started now. So what we are doing remote monitoring systems, the thing you cannot measure, you cannot control, right? So we are installing such remote monitoring system and understanding, can we do some bit improvement in the existing systems? Second is our livelihood programs. Can we really do some bit of our contribution in giving back to society through our CS or CS Foundation? And third is more on developing some livelihood opportunities. And we all know all this, our GDP, which is almost like 3.2 or 3.3 trillion dollar, agriculture contributes almost 20% of it. And it was a savior during the time of pandemic, right? It is almost 20%. Anybody knows which country has GDP in agriculture more than India? थोड़ा गलत आदत है, मैं क्वेश्चन पूछ देता हूँ. Right? Anybody? There are a lot of IIM students, right? Management students. So they play with numbers. We have GDP, manufacturing, services, and agriculture. No, it's only India has GDP maximum in agriculture. None of the countries, neither Australia, neither New Zealand also, which are good in dairy and animal husbandry. So this is the savior. But what is the saddest part also, or the strongest part, if you can think as an opportunity, is it provides employment to 44% of our population. More than that, if you add allied sector also, it goes to 60%. So see, there is an imbalance. So what we are trying to do, can we balance that? And how? So can India or can agriculture help us to achieve this target of $5 trillion economy, right? And it's possible. By 2028, 2027, definitely we'll reach this number. But there has to be an effort, consistent effort in all these 3 sectors. Services, it is going strong. Manufacturing, it is going strong. We are seeing it. IESA also like pushing on different PLI schemes. 1890 schemes have been launched by Government of India under Atmanirbhar Bharat. But what about agriculture? Just by having paddy or wheat in the crop will not do. With increasing in generation, the marginalized land is becoming smaller and smaller. The farm size of land in Jharkhand was 2 acres in 1947. Now it has gone to half an acre. 4 generations have passed. Divide hota hai land, right? Batwara hota hai. Though the productivity goes down, and we are just sowing paddy and wheat. Why? Because of MSP. We get good returns, but that is not sustainable returns. So what we are trying to do in this effort, and this is again correlating to the energy. Yes, definitely wires have reached each and every village, but not electrons. Sobhagya scheme, yes, it's doing well. Everything is doing well, but still there is scarcity or there is lack of energy access to the villages. And you can just hardly see this 140, 180 volts. You cannot run a 3-phase machine in rural context, or you cannot run any productive load. So what we can do, we can always have a hybrid system. Solar plus we can always have a grid electricity where we can power small machines which can do livelihood activities. We heard from the beautiful book, a British author, Small is Beautiful. So we are trying to do such activities where already mini grids are commissioned. Can we tap into so small loads which can generate local employment? And that is one of the studies what we are going to see. So rural livelihoods, these are some of the livelihoods what Gauri and other speakers have also discovered. And this is beautiful contrast image. You can see the barren land in front of the woman and the panel backside. Now with that electricity, through solar pumping, they are able to cultivate some land and they are going to crop mustard seeds. And then they are going to hull the mustard seed in mustard meal. This is the actual case in Gumla district in Jharkhand. So they are using this electricity for getting mustard oil, sarson ka ya rayi ka tel. And they are generating employment for local people. And this is one of the village, Naratoli in Jharkhand, where they are using the solar power for catchment areas also and powering the village also and also getting the प्रोडक्टिव लोड्स. प्रोडक्टिव लोड मींस कुछ भी चला सकते हैं. आटा चक्की चला सकते हैं हम, तेल का मिल चला सकते हैं, नॉन फार्मिंग एक्टिविटी कर सकते हैं जिससे आमदनी हो. है ना, आपने नेटफ्लिक्स या हॉटस्टार पे सीरियल देखा होगा 1245 क्या था वो किलोमीटर. A person returned from Bombay to Jharkhand by walking during pandemic just because he lost job in Bombay, so he has to come to Jharkhand for a sustainable livelihood, right? So can we create such small opportunities in local villages in our country? Definitely yes. And how? We are doing one such small effort by having a Turdal pulses processing unit in Jharkhand. So why Jharkhand? We already know this, and we have mapped this all 4 districts: Gumla, Khuti, Hazaribagh, and Ramgarh, where we are trying to develop this pulses processing plant. क्या है उसमें? कुछ नहीं, सोलर पैनल है, 5-7 किलोवाट का सिस्टम है, 10-15 किलोवाट का लिथियम आयन बैटरी है, ग्रिड कनेक्टेड भी है, right? That also is very important. Now we should not hide things. सब सोलर पे चलता है, ना? Everything is green is okay, but you have to highlight what is true. And then there are 4-5 दीदीज, उनका 6-7 घंटा दिन का बच जाता है, क्या करें? सर हमको कुछ तो जॉब दे दीजिए, कुछ तो हमको रोजगार दे दीजिए. So they are holding this plant. तो हमने क्या किया, टेक्नोलॉजी मंगाया अपोलो यूनिवर्सिटी से, इंटीग्रेट किया सोलर से, and we train those दीदीज. हमें पता नहीं है, right? We are electrical engineers, right? मास्टर्स हमने न्यूक्लियर में किया, लेकिन हम गांव में जाके भी काम कर रहे हैं. But it's very enterprising. Because they are so much aspirational in this movement, they wanted to do something. Why? क्योंकि उनके बेटों को, लड़कियों को अच्छा एजुकेशन मिले, हेल्थ केयर अच्छे से हो. जो प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर सेंटर था 5 किलोमीटर दूर होता है ये गांव से. सो मैक्सिमम डेथ आर बिकॉज ऑफ स्नेक बाइट, बिकॉज गांव में बिजली नहीं है, सोलर स्ट्रीट लाइट नहीं है. अभी भी है सिचुएशन ऐसे, राइट? यू जस्ट हैव टू कम आउट ऑफ योर कंफर्ट जोन एंड गो एंड सी लाइक व्हाट वी कैन डू फॉर द सोसाइटी. सो ये हमने तूर दाल का प्लांट लगाया है जहाँ पे 3 टन का सेल होता है. अभी 3 टन, इट्स अ 1 टन का भी नहीं होता था हमारे जब we started back in 2020. Every pandemic wave we have traveled and tried to see like what we can improve. Fortunately we get God's grace, like ना वायरस ने अभी तक तो कैच नहीं किया है, लेकिन let's see, right? So we with the success of other plant was set up by in Nagwa village. The third unit was this Soltex. क्या होता है, दाल भी सब अच्छे से बन जाता है, लेकिन मार्केट का परसेप्शन बन गया है कि पीला कलर का दाल चाहिए, राइट? थोड़ा हरा, थोड़ा ऑरेंज कलर रहता है. इट वाज रियली न्यूट्रिशियस. लेकिन अभी एफएमजी से, राइट, उन्होंने परसेप्शन है पीला कलर मींस बहुत अच्छा कलर, तो उसके लिए मशीन बिठाना पड़ा 35 लाख का, तब जाके किधर हमारा माल बिक गया. दिस आर सम चैलेंजेस, राइट? फेलियर भी बोल सकते हैं, आप बोल सकते हैं इट वाज गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी एंड थैंक्स टू आवर मैनेजमेंट, नेत्रा, राहुल, स्टीवन, राइट? एक बार वो करना ही नितिन, हाँ जरूरत है तो सैंक्शन कर देते हैं, राइट? जो भी पैसा है, दैट इज आल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? मनी मैटर्स. सो दिस इज व्हाट 60 टन्स तक प्रोसेसिंग कर सकते हैं. This is a small machine, almost 10 HP motor. We can drive that, and it's not running on solar. To be very honest, हमने अभी सोलर लगाया नहीं because production cost goes very high. 30 रुपए per unit जाता है, and when we have government electricity, it comes to 4 to 5 rupees. लेकिन इसमें 4-5 लोगों को रोजगार मिलता है. That's very important. So this is the thing how it improves. ये ऐसा रहता है. Oh sorry. Then the final product is that one. This is the initial one, the right, left one, and the final is that one. So this is process happening at large scale. Can we do at a small scale, right? In a pocket of our country. And this is the employment generation. For last 1 year, we are able to generate some around 500 employment days, right? And in that too also, almost 100 days per दीदी. ना मनरेगा कितना है? उतना ही देते हैं मनरेगा भी, right? उसमें भी बहुत सारा चीजें होता है, राइट? जो आएंगे मनरेगा को देखने के लिए. But it's good, at least something is better than nothing. Similarly, so similarly, this was the employment generation and this is the end user income generation. पैसा भी चाहिए, राइट? कैसे पैसे तो 3 से 4.5 हजार रुपए उन्हें महीने के मिलते हैं. 5 दीदियों को ऑलमोस्ट लाइक 15-16 हजार उनका इनकम जनरेट हो जाता है. And another thing is microcredit. Everybody has seen Grameen Bank from Bangladesh. Similarly, Ranjan is doing a similar effort by providing microcredit. 6% पे कोई लोन नहीं देता इंडिया में. अब मैनेजमेंट इंस्टीट्यूट के स्टूडेंट हो, राइट? बेयर मिनिमम रेट तो रेपो रेट से ज्यादा होता है, 4-5% ऊपर ही ले लेते हैं बैंक. तो 6% are giving interest and CS being a guarantor for that is good for the farmers. तो 5-6 लाख का लोन भी मिल जाता है. So whole idea, if they spend 5 lakh rupees, can they earn additional 50,000 to 60,000 rupees each season? So that is the whole idea. और ये एक्सिस करके छोटा सा मशीन है जहाँ एक्चुअली दाल बनता है. और बदल है, उसमें रॉ मटेरियल डालना पड़ता है. ये रॉ मटेरियल तुअर दाल का, ये सोलर पे चलता है पूरा, सिंगल फेज मशीन डिजाइन किया है ये. और ये डिफरेंट मशीन्स हमने लगाए थे to understand like how we can see improved technology can benefit the productivity, right? The time. So this is some additional version of that, and this machine doesn't cost lakhs of rupees. कितना होगा? जो पहला मशीन था वो था 1,25,000 का. ये दूसरा मशीन है ये 80,000 का है और तीसरा मशीन है वो 2,15,000 का है। बट दैट इज जनरेटिंग सस्टेन एम्प्लॉयमेंट, ऐसा नहीं कि 50,000-60 लाख रुपए में इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ता है। सो दिस इज अनदर मशीन एंड दिस इज अ मल्टी-डे ट्रेडर एंड दिस इज अ स्मॉल मैसेज फ्रॉम किरण दीदी।
जो हम लोग यहाँ 4 दिन की काम करते हैं और हम लोग को जो गोटा आता है अरहर का वो बाहर से आता है और सबसे पहले हम लोग गोटा को ग्राइंडर मशीन में ग्राइंड करते हैं। उससे बड़ा दाना अलग होता है, छोटा दाना अलग होता है और जो छोटा दाना होता है उसको फिर हम लोग डिस्टोनर मशीन में डिस्टोनर करते हैं। उससे अच्छा गोटा अलग होता है, कैंची अलग होता है। उसके बाद में जो नमी रहता है जो अच्छा गोटा में वो हम लोग ड्रायर मशीन में सुखाते हैं। सुखाने के बाद में हम लोग फिर मिलिंग करते हैं। मिलिंग करते हैं जो हम लोग पहले हल्का सा घिसते हैं, उसके बाद में फिर हम लोग उसको तेल लगाते हैं। तेल लगाते हैं हम लोग 4 दिन इसी तरह से करते हैं। उसके बाद चौथा दिन में फाइनल दाल जो होता है, फाइनल दाल निकलता है। उससे हम लोग सोटेक्स के लिए भुंगा में हम लोग का एक मशीन है, उसमें हम लोग भेजते हैं दाल को सोटेक्स के लिए। उसके बाद हम लोग 4 दीदी जो काम करते हैं इस कार्य में दाल मिलिंग करने में, जो इस कार्य के लिए सीएस इंडिया को धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूँ कि हम लोग को इस तरह का गांव में काम मिला है। और हम लोग सबसे पहले तो हम लोग अपना घर में सिर्फ काम इतना घर का ही काम करते थे। जो हम लोग को यहाँ पे इस तरह से रोजगार मिला है तो हम लोग को कुछ पैसा आमदनी मिलता है, जो हम लोग अपने बच्चे को अच्छे स्कूल में पढ़ा पा रहे हैं। और
So I think that is complete. So this is my team. It's always to we started developing this. This is all the intervention. अभी हम दाल भी बेचने लगे हैं। दाल का रेट्स भी है, which are more easier and very nutritious dal at market price, competitive price. And this is our planning for next 5 years. We want to definitely scale up, right? ऐसा one off करके नहीं छोड़ना है, right? Which is a part and parcel of development sector, right? एक कर दिया चलो थोड़ा पैसा मिल गया, things are okay. No, that's not the way. And this is our pattern, and thanks to our team, right? Steven, Rahul, Nitra, Rupesh, who leads the effort, right? मैं तो जाके presentation देता हूँ, but actual काम तो वो लोग करते हैं, right? And Didis and Loknath and Satyendra. Thank you.
Again, I think amazing work, and again, I have learned a lot from the effort what you have been taking on. How it is not just about technology or about developing technology, but to make technology work on ground and finding out. Nitin has been traveling to almost all the states to work with local entrepreneurs and finding out some of this machinery which was maybe designed for some other application. Try to understand if there is some improvement required so that the efficiency of the machine is improved, the reliability of the machine is improved, and then put together this entire ecosystem.
Okay.
So again, thank you very much, Nitin, for all the work. Although you ended up crossing time, so no questions for you in the Q&A. So now I think without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Vivekanand. Is this online? Dr. Vivekanandan will be sharing some of the insights on something which is upcoming as a green hydrogen, because many times when we are looking into green hydrogen, mainly the focus is on large industrial application where it is being seen for decarbonization of petroleum refining or for fertilizer creation. But Dr. Vivekanandan has been doing some work on looking into green hydrogen applications for rural areas. So we'll request him to share his insights. So he's the one. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, please go ahead. We can see you on screen.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Rahulji. Thanks to organizers. I can't hear your words, I think so. Please.
Yeah, please go ahead. We can hear you. You're on mute. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm audible now, okay?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Rahul, you are on mute.
This kind of question.
Sitting live, you are on mute. What technology, what?
My screen is visible, no? Thank you for everyone, okay? That's all, Professor. So, first and foremost, thank you. Okay. So first and foremost, what particularly today we are discussing morning itself. Yesterday we are discussing about that energy transition and other things and different verticals in this conference. Okay. So the only the goals that we are going for upliftment of rural community only. So this part also we have discussed about the green hydrogen. So green hydrogen is a fuel for future. Because of it's having that it's an energy carrier. It can transfer the heat, transfer the heat energy or transfer the electrical energy, what it may be. Okay, it is an energy carrier. It's available in abundant manner. Okay, the country like India, so we are having a huge potential of green hydrogen. Okay, so like particularly in rural sector also, we are having that huge potential. Okay, normally India has a significant age of green hydrogen production due to this favorable geographic conditions and abundant natural resources. Not only India is in a unique position, okay, not only for the self-sufficient, it's also produce extra hydrogen for export potential. We are having the export potential also. So transition of hydrogen economy will not reduce India's import dependency. Normally, the clean air, we are in order to maintain the clean air and in order to reduce the greenhouse gases, so we are using the hydrogen economy. Okay, and normally India can decarbonize. Normally India decarbonize and the energy industry sector, particularly in energy sector like energy industry, transport, and other things and all. Okay, so we are having the national hydrogen vision. It can normally supply in 2022. IIT-IIT released that later to green national hydrogen vision. It help us to make a green hydrogen, the transition to India in green hydrogen economy. Okay, so how will connect with is a saving of hydrogen net zero. Okay, so normally we can nearly 93 countries are adopted net zero rockets. So 39 countries have adopted hydrogen strategies. Okay, so using hydrogen we can clear the net zero concept. Okay, so these are the hydrogen supply mix over the time. Already 650 million tons of hydrogen required to obtain that 2050 we going to reach that net zero. Okay, so nearly 22% of carbon abatement due to that using of hydrogen. Okay, that hydrogen in the energy mix. Okay, so what about the India? Okay, the green hydrogen in India, particularly of the global demand. Normally the global demand actually is 70 to 90 billion ton of hydrogen per year. In 2020, it's more than 7 billion ton of hydrogen. And now 2022, actually our demand, okay, demand for hydrogen in India is 9 million ton. Okay, so we are importing hydrogen from otherwise we can make hydrogen by fossil fuel only. Nearly 20% of hydrogen for iron and steel industry we are through fossil fuel only. Other thing, 45% used for refining sector also we are using this kind of fossil fuels only. And 33% of for chemical industries. Okay, so we are producing nearly 3% of carbon dioxide emission for the environment through this kind of activities. Because of we are using that natural gas, coal and byproduct of refineries and other things and all. Okay, to make a hydrogen. Hydrogen can emit the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide, okay, it will gives the greenhouse emissions. Okay, so what is hydrogen? It is a simplest form. This hydrogen is an energy carrier, okay, to store, move, and deliver the energy. Okay, so it's a form of hydrogen, it's a form of hydrogen. So it is the most abundant element in the world. Okay, so universe, okay, everywhere we can get it. Because of its water is a hydrogen, okay, hydrogen carrier. So it is the highest energy content, having that highest energy content. So these are the some advantages of hydrogen. So next one is what is the process chain of hydrogen? Okay? So the process chain is particularly for we are supplying the renewables, green hydrogen. So we are supplying the renewables through our nuclear, our biomass, our natural gas, any other sources. Okay. So through this we can get the hydrogen. So particularly for coal, we can gasification process. We can get the hydrogen carrier as a hydrogen gas. Otherwise, it can be a hydrogen-based fuel, so it's a synthetic fuel like that. Okay. So the natural gas, not only the natural gas, is a steam methane reformation process. Okay, form of green hydrogen-based fuels or a green hydrogen gas. So the biomass is a biomass classification. Also, we have options for the particularly for India. We are having the so I will explain later. But we are having the huge biomass. Okay, particularly in agriculture industry. Okay, in the rural sector, we are having that huge biomass there. So this biomass can be converted to hydrogen. Okay, so it is a value added for the farmers also. Okay, then storage part. So storage part, it can be particularly for hydrogen carrier, it may be hydrogen gas or it may be a hydrogen based fuel. Okay, then the storage part.
Dr. Vivekananda, sorry to interrupt, but I just have another 3-4 minutes. So if you want to focus on the rural applications, you can get.
Yeah. Please. Thank you. Okay, these are types of hydrogen, gray and blue and green hydrogens. So these are the various kind of hydrogen things and all. So these are methane, steam methane reforming, gas, coal gasification, everything. So these are the methods. Okay, these are the hydrogen energy systems. Okay, where we are connected and how to get the hydrogen and how we are using the hydrogen. So these are green hydrogen. So green hydrogen we are doing. This is a hydrolysis. Then we supply the electricity through the hydrolysis. Then CSV and electricity through solar and everything. So we have these are the some supply sheet. Okay, so these are some electrolysis. Okay, the types of electrolysis. So map here where we are making that electrolysis for making of hydrogen. So these are structures. Okay, this is our control. Actually, we are having that stubble burning. This is a main important issues in Delhi. Okay, and because we are facing stubble burning. So how we are facing that stubble burning? What's the meaning for it? It's a way of clearing the field of petty grass. Okay, so the petty grass create huge amount of petty grass, particularly for India. So abundant availability of biomass from the agricultural residue normally. So the residue which can be used as a source of production of hydrogen. Particularly this diagram, actually this biomass, particularly in biomass is there. So biomass totally 240 million tons of it should be to I think 240 million tons per year. Okay, so these are various locations. We are having that biomass intensity. Okay, we can convert it into hydrogen. Okay, so total of the things, total of things nearly 240 million tons. Okay, so these 240 million tons we can produce a hydrogen. Okay, of around 1.25 metric million tons of tons per year. Okay, it isn't sufficient for Indian, particularly we are having sufficient for our Indian economy, Indian usage, and we can export to the other countries also. Okay, this is our advantage of farmers because of these are the value added. No, we can already in Madhya Pradesh already we have a plant. Okay, that plant can convert that hydrogen biomass into the particularly in agri waste. No, agri waste use. The farmers are send the farmers are send the roughly waste into that biomass centers. Okay, so they can get some value added also. Okay, so they will get some extra revenue from it also. Another thing, they can reduce the burning of residues and everything. So we can reduce the carbon and this kind of problem also we can solve. So we can put. So last meeting with IIM, I also mentioned that. So we have to make some this kind of biomass hydrogen plant in and around the Delhi, no? So we can reduce this kind of activities and we can reduce this kind of scumbling and all, scumbling of party straw and everything and all. So we can improve that farmers' life as well as the in and around the people's and can reduce the carbon dioxide emission, okay, emission and everything, CNC emissions also. So this is our part, okay. So how you can make successful with the cost.
Sorry, I think we are running a little bit late. So if we can wrap up in the next minute, then we'll try to come back to you in question and answer if audience has any questions.
Yeah, sure. These are the plant. Okay, we have a plant daily 100 gram of weight from 1 kilogram of biomass. You know, so 60 gram. Okay, 60 gram for the 1 kilogram of biomass we can get the 100 gram. Okay, so these are the views. Okay, thank you for your this presentation. So, okay.
Thank you. Share the entire presentation with the audience.
Yeah, I will share with the audience.
So now without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Rashi to share insights on the e-mobility in rural application.
Rahul, I'm not just going to speak on e-mobility, I'm going to add more on energy storage as well, and I'll present this very short case study, but by the time they're putting up the presentation. What is energy? Any one of you, the beautiful people out here in the room, what is energy? At least one hand up, at least somebody talking about energy. I mean, you've been hearing energy, right since morning. We had such a big talk in a plenary session on energy. So what is energy? Anyone? Yes, please.
Being a layman, I'll put it word in E is equal to mc square. What?
E is equal to mc square, layman. Fantastic. Anybody else? Anybody else? What? Yes, please. Put on your mic and just say that.
Between two molecules.
Okay, kinetic energy between two molecules.
And capacity to do work. Ma'am, capacity to do work.
Where is that coming from? Okay, there. Okay, capacity to do work. Yeah, more. I had two hands up there. Yes, please.
Combination of forces.
Combination of forces. Okay, somebody behind you want to say something? I can't hear you. Switch it on, please. Yeah.
Talking with you also is
fantastic! A big round of applause to him. Talking with you is also energy. Perfect. Okay, now what is energy? We look at so many definitions out here, but we have forgotten that we are energy. A dead body lying on the floor does not have energy. Please understand, you and I together are energy. Now what is the transformation that we are looking at? Just electrical energy? Just thermal energy? Just biomass? No. We are looking at a complete transformation of energy. And we all together have to come and do that transformation. When we talk of sustainability, my time is not up. You forgot to reset the clock. This is also energy. The happy laugh that we just had is also energy, okay? Food, water, money, human beings, animals, wind is all energy. And what we have given just electricity a color of energy. That's not right. That's incomplete definition of an energy. We all together are going to transform these places to make it more sustainable, make it more habitable, and make a better, happier place. And how will that happen? What I'm going to show you here are two case studies. Okay, I will come back to electrical energy because that's the focus I have been assigned to today for this conference. But how that small change in the case study brings a sustainable development in every aspect. Okay? Okay. Now, when you talk of an ecological dream, I mean, it was very beautifully, when Gaurangji just showed all this SDGs he had coupled together. Well, I'm not going to couple all, I'm just taking two because I am not as capable as him as of now. So I'm just going to take SDG 5 and SDG 7 right now. Well, there are many things which combine to energy, wherein you have access to clean water, energy, environment, healthcare, education, and skill development. So when I move to the first case study, it's like, what did we do in mapping the rural India's development? Now, what has happened is, what we are trying to do, we are going away from the rural India to the urban India. Most of us are moving out. Now, what happens when you move out is you forget your roots. And that is where the foundation has to be strong, that is where the development has to be strong. Otherwise, you cannot flourish. Your building is going to collapse if your rural development, your foundation is not strong enough. So that's what we tried and focused, because right now a lot of basics are lacking out there. Now, this is one of my first case studies. I'm going to more focus here. What had happened is, there was this primary school at Katavaram village in Telangana, where there was a very funny situation that used to happen. Now, this is school, they had a pole right in the center of the playground. Very beautifully built school. 2 floors, just simple 2 floors, nice school. And the pole had a CFL light hanging on it, and the teacher would go out like this and see. If the CFL bulb is glowing, that means today there is electricity, there could be a class which can be conducted. And if that CFL light is not glowing, that means there is no electricity today, students will go out play and no lectures will be taken. I mean, no class will happen today. So that was the fun part of it. Despite having a computer, a projector, every IT related thing in that school, because CSR may people donate. But what is the use of that donation when you cannot use the thing for actual development of the children who are coming for studying there? So then when we got to know about this, okay, we said fine, we'll solve this problem, we'll give them 100% reliable, assured electricity at the school. Now the outcome, what happened was, they started, it was a very small project, nothing too big to boast about, nothing in megawatt scale and stuff. It was just a simple 2 kilowatt solar with a 3 kVA inverter and a 5 kilowatt battery, very simple stuff. Now what happened in that was, after 1 month, we saw that the girls started coming to school. I was surprised why girl childs are coming now where they were not coming before. Now, access to clean energy gave them access to water. How did that happen? They were very nice clean toilets, but they didn't have water. So at home also they did not have water. School also there is no water. What's the big deal? Why should I go to school? And when they had electricity, the water pumps were working, the school had water, they felt like coming to school. Such a small thing, by giving them clean access to electricity, they got access to water. And with that water, the girls could come to school because they felt more secure and safe with a clean toilet. So sanitation improved. Security improved. Despite giving midday meals, children were not ready to come to school because of these problems. Then the pandemic happened, the very good pandemic happened. I don't curse the pandemic at all. It has been a blessing for all of us if we realize the positive side of it. Now, in the pandemic, the school did have electricity. Now what did they do? Everybody started on the mobile phone. They started doing e-learning classes from there. So up to 6th standard, it's a very small primary school, but all the children 100% attended. And just before that, before the pandemic started, in the same year, their intake of the students had doubled. So imagine what something small as access to clean electricity can do. I will not say energy because I believe energy is more than electricity. So imagine what such a small thing can do. Now here is like when she was, this is the whole system what it looks like, and she is the headmaster, she is termed as the headmaster of the Katavaram Primary School. She said she was so enthusiastic, she did so much of effort to get CSR funds to get all of this thing ready up and going. So such efforts can change the entire perspective. And now what had happened is that everybody passed from that school. The whole batch. Imagine everybody if attending every day, they will definitely pass because they are learning and it is a happiness that the child has. And when our team was there for installation, the neighboring kids came and they learned about solar from all of us. They were so happy, fixing screws, nuts and bolts, and okay, we are contributing to our school. So imagine such small kids can do so many wonders. Then we sitting here, all educated, such a big energetic crowd, don't you have the power to change this world? Aren't you capable of transforming the energies together? Every one of us can contribute to this change. Now I'll do the second case study. Now this is a big case study. Here I can put my colors of saying that it's a megawatt scale case study. Now what happens here was, now this was another different story where a beautiful premise, 28 acres of land, beautifully built, next to heaven on earth with all the plantations, peace, prosperity, people and everything in house, cooking in house, transportation in house, but again challenge is electricity. The Discoms were, I hope everybody understands Discom is the electricity provider, service provider. They could not give them assured electricity and they were running the entire thing on the diesel generator. And 7,000 liters of diesel was used on every instance that the DG was running. 500 kVA of diesel and storage. They had these underground bunkers to store diesel. However, there was no theft because it's a closed-door community, but still there was this problem of pollution. And as a responsibility of all the citizens that we are, if we cannot contribute to, improving the climate, or what we have as an environment, let's not degrade it. At least let's not contribute to the degradation. So they came up with, they have a lot of solar, but it was of no use because it was an on-grid plain vanilla solar, and what happens is during the time you do not have electricity, doesn't work. So now I can see my time is going to be up and I have promised I'm not going to cross that. So what we did here was we installed the solar with a hybrid energy storage system. Now what is hybrid energy? What we did was instead of just having plain lead acid batteries or just lithium batteries, we combined the two together in one single system to have energy independence and DG replacement because we wanted sustainability at a price which is affordable. Because just like how Nitin also said, paisa kitna jata hai? Sanction kaun karega? At the end of the day, our pocket mein paisa nahi to kuch nahi hone wala hai. So that was the thing. And second important aspect here was protecting the flora and fauna. Because first we got a 100% diesel replacement, and second important thing was, that we have to live in harmony with the nature. The small insects, the rodents around us, when you use a lot of electrical systems around, they get hampered. They are the ones which are injured and they die. Can we make electrically safe systems even for that environment of the fauna that we have around? And this is such a beautiful place. We have squirrels running around, we have peacocks, and it's a very soft environment. How can we not have to preserve it? So that was very important. And what they did is, now coming to e-mobility, if you can see here, if it has, okay. Now you can see the vehicles that they're all made in-house, running on lithium batteries, charging through solar. So and they have a biogas plant there. They have a STP, sewage treatment plant, and they have a solar-based cooking completely in-house, which actually binds everything together to make a clean, sustainable ecosystem. And they can cater to 5,000 people a day. So that's how it goes. And my time is up and my presentation is also. Perfect. Because time is also end.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashi. It's good to have a co-chair and speaker so that she is handling both the duties. So, thank you. So without further delay, the last but not the least, Dr. Nitin, he will be sharing some of the work on the environmental impact in the context of rural energy transition. So Dr. Nitin.
Very good evening, and it's indeed a privilege to be here, in fact, and to share with you. And Nitin called me that there is a very important conference, and you have to speak on environmental impact of renewable energy. And I got to feel that what kind of a bad feeling a PhD student can have about his supervisor when Professor Solanki is all promoting solar, and he's asking me to tell about bad about this. Then I decided what to speak, which is more relevant to this conference. Can I have my slides? Okay, my time starts now. Okay. So, well, I wish and I pray, and given a chance, I meet God, I will also pray what Professor Solanki or all of us are doing. But in an environmental engineering research institute or as a scientist, we need to believe in the reality, okay? Because already we are almost sure about the disaster, but if we feel that everything will be very clean, then we will be taking a very bad risk. So let's quickly have a reality check, and then we'll go to the rural context and what are the possibilities to minimize the impact, okay? It's not going to be all green, in fact. I was expecting somebody will explain about it, but we already have a statistic, so we need to believe that this is what we have progressed in last 5 years, and I cannot believe that if somebody tried to convince me in next 5 years the statistics will be very different, although I pray and I wish, okay? So if you see the forecast or statistics for 2040, we are going to not only use coal, we are going to use coal more than what we use today. Same is going to happen with fossil fuel. And what Professor Solanki sensitized you, okay, it looks like from tomorrow we should stop using these fuels. Okay, we are not going to do that for next 2 decades or 3 decades. And there are some very genuine reasons for that. It's our turn to develop. We have got a coal, and we are trying hard as a government of India, okay, to try with the clean coal technology. And after the recent developments in the Europe and all these war, we need to also think about the energy security. And probably coal is probably one of the best bet about it, okay? So, oil demand is rising, coal demand is rising, LPG demand, as Svati ji has already mentioned, there are almost 37% of the people who are not having LPG. We are trying to give them. So the bottom line is the fossil fuel consumption is projected to increase, okay, despite the impressive growth in RE, okay. So we need to read the data properly. Today we are at 500 gigawatt and we have 100 gigawatt renewables, and if somebody tells us that we will be 400 gigawatt renewables after 10 years, yes, that's a fact, but we forget that by the time we'll have 1000 gigawatt requirement, okay. So we need to be very, very careful. Now, reading the data appropriately, I used to highlight this since last 10-15 years that every year the IMD predicts that there will be a normal monsoon and the Sensex is jumping by about 1,000 or 2,000. And we say, why don't you distribute this stepwise? Now here is the scene. And I was very happy to read that monsoon was above normal, but agri will hit. Because half of the country will be rain deficient and 25% will have flooding. Nothing else. So we need to read and interpret the data very properly. Now, why we should discuss in the rural context especially, and I was happy to read about this and talk to my colleagues, in fact, it's a bit of a different thing. You all know what is just transition and why it is so important. So the rural context, if you see, the energy transition requires, in fact, overcoming very specific challenges. I'm an environmental scientist, we know the challenges of the cities like Bombay and Bangalore, we call it a hotspot and the skyscraper and all these things, which are completely different in the rural setup. But the rural is probably more vulnerable, okay? There's a low population density, the development path is pretty different. They follow particular development pathways. We need to look into their natural resources, in fact, physical isolation, very limited diversity in their economic, prospects, very high rate of vulnerable population, so on and so forth. So I can write, in fact, 3 slides on this, and I myself was wondering that rural setup is so different when it comes to energy transition. So we have to be very sensitive about this, okay? I'm sure you know about the ecosystem services, which are roughly $33 trillion per year, okay? That's what you call it CO2, like sequestration or water cleaning or whatever way the nature is helping us. And that's mostly coming from those which are less polluted, less populated in fact. So we need to take care of those rural areas. So I was happy to see this, we are focusing on the rural, and scientifically and technically these are the issues which we should keep in mind while going for like transition. We have seen the cooking energy transition and suddenly LPG prices are up and there is a slippage. I also work in this domain, so we know it actually. So what is climate change is an excessive energy use problem, while the rural folks are still energy deprived. Okay, so they should not be punished any further. Okay. Why I am here to talk about the coal, because coal is going to be there, that's number one, and very unfortunately we deal with these problems not appropriately. And that's why I'm going to worry about the solar, I'm going to worry about the battery. There are three things related to the coal power generation: coal mining and transport, power generation, and the waste and the emissions. Okay. So nearly 78% of the coal power capacity is not liable to meet emission norms. And we are going to increase the capacity substantially in the next 5 to 10 years. These are the rural specific areas. We go and we check in the field and we found that things are really bad actually. 300 million tons of fly ash. 2 months back there was a big breach of the fly ash pond close to Nagpur. We have a Koradi thermal power plant, and like the hundreds of hectares of land was like completely damaged. So we need to worry about that. Always we started debating at my institute nearly that we talk too much about the GHG, which is very much justified. But for GHG, we cannot sacrifice or we cannot ignore the conventional pollutants. Okay, we are in a pretty bad situation. You talk about the particulate matter. Okay, you see the last week what happened in Delhi. So you cannot accept that. Okay, let's forget about the particulate matter and talk only about the CO2. Okay, so these are the rural areas, and to highlight it, this fly ash can kill the land, which is a livelihood for the large number of population. Mining is again damaging the rural areas, and this is something interesting for you. In fact, environmental impacts of abundant coal mines and thermal power plant. India needs to decommission thermal power plants and coal mines in a large scale. There are new technologies coming for the sake of energy efficiency, okay, and for the climate change reasons. Now, what we'll do with these plants? They are going to be abundant. Okay, so end of life management is a challenge which we are working at our institute. Okay, and disposal of these toxic waste in fact. So 20% of current capacity is primed for decommissioning. Okay, so we need to also look into that. Now how to do that? So reclamation of abundant mines is very much possible scientifically. This is the brief concept. I can't go into the details because of shorter time. But to happily share you, a couple of colleagues of mine, they work extensively in this area. This is the degraded land. This is the fly ash dump close to Nagpur. This was the scientific intervention, which was like purely, I would say, biological or bio-inspired rejuvenation efforts. And after about 150 to 190 days, you can turn them into lush green. So this is very much required, in fact, and this is not possible, I would say. Of course, that doesn't allow us to keep on throwing the fly ash wherever we want. Now, this is life cycle assessment based different options, energy options, and you can clearly see the solar is a winner, wind is a winner, so is the nuclear and the hydropower, even the biomass. So there's no doubt whatsoever that these are the clean things. Now, why I want to touch upon that? Because we haven't managed these waste properly even for the goals, so we should be worried about the other things. This is India's capacity projection. Well, we are going to generate 3,600 tons of solar PV waste by 2030, and which can be handled very easily, in fact. And there's a good possibility of circular economy, recovery of important like metals from there. Okay. Now, recycling recovery potential is very, very high in this. Now, electric vehicle, this is the scene. In fact, industry says that about by this year, China alone will generate 5 lakh metric tons of used lithium-ion batteries, and that by 2030, the worldwide number hit 2 million metric tons per year. So we need to really, really think about this, how to manage this. This is the future. We have seen that LCA-based assessment clearly says this is much, much cleaner than the coal. Okay, but we are very good at messing up the waste. Okay, so that's why we have to really worry about these things. Now, are batteries bad for the environment? Yes. And what is happening, sometimes we get a new project proposal for the EIA, those project proposals for the want of space intensive, they move towards the rural areas. For two reasons. The land is cheap. Second things, they can probably escape the compliance. They can violate things actually there, which should be a disaster in fact. So these are pretty serious impacts of batteries, okay, right from the heavy metals, and we don't understand that while releasing the heavy metals in the field, it will ultimately lead to the food chain and we are going to eat those food. Somebody has already pointed out that the food is already contaminated with the pesticides and the heavy metals, okay. So, take maybe 1 minute. This is already happening in fact, okay. So the science is available and how to manage is also available, I would say. Thanks to Govt of India, which has already notified the battery-based management rules, okay, and that can be really done scientifically. So we should always promote for that. This is about the wind energy, but yes, it has got you can see that just very low CO2 footprint as compared to the coal, but there are a few impacts, okay. Normally those impacts are in the rural domain, so I think we can avoid it. We work with the Svati ji, and this is one of the area which is going to be there for another 10-20 years. So we have our own cook stove technology, cook stove I would say, and we are working through CSR fund. Right now we are working in the Khandwa district, some travel areas as well as Belghat area, and we found this is one of the really interesting intervention. Yes, I agree that a lot of IEC and awareness is required. Because we can just reduce the emission, we cannot completely eliminate. We have to understand that at our home we are using LPG, which is the clean fuel, okay? But still we have that exhaust system, okay? So here there are cooking emissions, there are ventilation issues which we are trying to handle, okay? Very good returns on this investment. So we have done a lot of projects in the rural areas, I think in 4 or 5 states, and now we are going through in a larger way. Within 6 months, there should be about 1 lakh more deployment of cook stove. Carbon finance is coming a big way to help us. Okay, the only problem with the carbon finance to me is they are only asking for the CO2 reduction. They just completely forget what about other emissions. So we are going to intervene in this. That please use this fund for the benefit of the rural folks, but also worry about their health. Degraded land, very much concern about the rural population. Yes, there are good possibility to do the rejuvenation. And I found this slide just 3 or 4 days back in the Times of India, that these are the annual emissions from food system, which we should really highlight, because if we can get carbon finance, it will be a win-win situation for carbon credit as well as to help our farmers in this. So I'll just summarize here that yes, I may be even wrong, because there's a need of data and the reliable data, based on which only we can say what is going to happen, okay? And the proper inferences. So it's not going to be all green. We have the projections. I wish after 5 years these projections are wrong by International Energy Agency, but as of now, environment doesn't work on the percent share of this thing. Environment will have depend on the absolute number. So you're going to increase your coal consumption, you're going to increase the fossil fuel, the environmental impacts are going to be there. Rural population has some unique transition challenges, okay? We can't ignore the conventional pollutants for sure, like the flies, the mercury, the sulfate, the NOx, which are in a very dire state in fact. The thermal power plant, Asit and mine closure will be a challenge, okay? And we are left with no accessibility capacity. So I think rural areas are becoming very vulnerable, and we have to think differently. Fortunately at my institute, we are quite clear that we will consider all these things to happen. So with this, I would still show this slide from Gus Pitt, who was a big environmental scientist from World Research Institute. And he says that I used to think the top environmental problems are biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address these problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy, which Gauri is highlighting and everybody is highlighting, so we need to really control this. And I hope we are going to sensitize all these young generation, the students, that the indirect emissions and the footprints are very high. If you do not know, a cup of tea has a water footprint of 40 liters, a coffee is 80 liters, and a shirt is a 2,200 liters. Okay, please. So this is the kind of a footprint. So with this, I'll once again thank you all for your kind attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nitin, for highlighting the complete holistic approach in terms of the ecosystem impact of even the green energy. And I think again I'm a student of engineering and public policy, and one of the things is whenever you do this type of impact analysis, it always depends on where you are drawing the boundary, and your answers can keep on changing, or depending on what answers you want, you can decide to draw the boundary where, and you can get either answer. But I think again practically I think we are running out of time, both for the session as well as I think as a humanity, and we need to wake up, we need to take action. And again, I hope that I think the kind of network what is being developed through this initiative by Stanford and Will's Global Foundation will help us in taking these action forward. Just one my hope is that I think there are many people who are doing a lot of interesting things, and when we see there are a lot of overlaps between it, but I still see that many of us are not aware of what others are doing. So again, I would like to thank the organizers for bringing all of us together and making it aware. But then let's not wait for next conference for figuring out what's the update. Let's stay connected on ground as a human to human, and let's work together. I have a small message from Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee, who is one of the forces behind it. Unfortunately, because of his health, he could not join us with us here, but he's listening online. But in the interest of time, he just sent me a message that thank you all in the Wheels Energy Council, all the speakers, all the organizers from BHU, especially Dr. S.K. Dubey, the Wheels Global Foundation, Mr. Suresh Shenoy, Mr. Ashok Desai, and all the board members and chair of the chapters, Dr. Irendra Ghosh, Arjun Malhotra, and Stanford Idea Village committee, especially Dr. Sunny Anand and Sundar Kamath, as well as all the volunteers of the BHU for their time and help in making it success. Let's continue with this rural transformation mission for 2030. Namaste. So with that, again, some of us will be available. Unfortunately, Dr. Rashi needs to rush to airport quickly, but let's, I think, get together, and there is some more, I think, cultural activities which will allow us to interact and exchange notes if anyone is interested. So thank you, everyone.
Speakers for such an insightful and thought-provoking address and sharing your inspiring initiatives with us. With this, we come to a fruitful end of the session. I request you all to kindly proceed for the high tea. We will begin with the
please wait, we are taking a group photo with all the audience participants. So if you can come here, I think the photographer wants everyone come here and face the screen.
Can we all have a thumbs up for Wheels?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.